Oh, hey. What up? So, I don't have a script. I don't have an organization. I don't have a pie chart or a Venn diagram or any sticky notes or any shit like that. Okay? All I have is I don't know, some feelings, you know? I got some feelings. So we're gonna get into it, man. Different kind of stream today. You know, in all seriousness, let me tell you guys, can we go to story time? Just a little bit of story time before we get into all this. So I did not plan on this being a thing. I did not expect this to be a thing. And yesterday I was actually working on a completely different thing. Different video. I was actually working on, oh my god, I shouldn't have started fucking with my hair. No. I definitely do need a haircut too. Look at that shit. It's getting crazy. Anyway, so yesterday I was actually working, ironically, on a really big video all about Chris Evans, but it was all about like Hydra Cap and some of the theories and the things that I had going on. And so dead ass, man, like just sitting there yesterday and you know, thinking about that video, about to record it, literally about to record it. And Shine revealed some crazy stuff about Captain America. And this made me like reach out to people and I was like, what the fuck is happening here? You know? And then I got a ton more info on it and I was like, damn. So look, I did not expect this. I did not want this, but it happened. Okay, it happened, you know, and we found out some crazy shit yesterday, and I'll be real with you, and I think like a lot of you guys probably saw the video, or you know, maybe you're just kind of putting it together based on my tone and everything, but yeah, I wasn't that pumped about it. Okay, I'm not that pumped about the leaks, and yeah, so that's what today is about. Today is like, we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to speculate about it. Now, here's what I'll say. I feel a little bit better about it now as compared to when I first found out yesterday. When I first found out yesterday, dude, oof, it was tough. I did not have a good reaction to it, and I was just not that pumped. Okay, not that pumped about what was happening. I feel a little bit better about it now. And there's still plenty of ways that this could go that would be really cool. Okay? So, I don't want to be completely doom and gloom. And also, I think a lot of you guys like, and I'm really interested to know what you think of this, because a lot of you guys did not like my theories. A lot of you guys did not like some of the shit that I would bring up. And here's what's funny. Like, I guess I don't know. What I can't figure out is, like, did you actually not like the other ideas? Or are you just down on Marvel? Because like there's some people in the community that dead ass, I swear, like I can't prove this, mostly because I'm not going to take the time to go confirm it. But there's some people in the community that like, I brought up the evil Avengers stuff, and I swear to God, there were some of you guys that said it was lame. Then you were like, this is stupid, this is lame, that would be stupid as fuck. And now I'm like, oh, it's actually not in there. And you're like, Marvel's cooked. It sounds terrible. And it's like, I don't know. Maybe you are just a DC fan. And the thing is, too, I gotta talk about the DC fans a little bit. I gotta talk about the DC fans a little bit, man. You guys, like I'm trying to be chill about this. You guys are, and it's not just me. Like, here's the thing. Like, some of you are going to be like, oh, it's just you, Josh. Like, oh, you just feel this way because, you know, you had the bed or, you know, whatever. You don't like gun or whatever. Like this, that, second, and the third. Nah, man. I'm sorry. It's not just me. It's a lot of people out there. Look around. a lot of people have an issue with how y'all are conducting yourselves and how you are being vocal about DC and Marvel out there. It's just a lot. Like, it's just, like, I said it on Twitter, and I think this is probably, by the way, Roka retweeted me and said a similar thing. But I said on social media that you guys are, it's like crazy. Like, the energy's so wild, and it's a little bit like sheltered kids that like get to college and they're in the real world and then they just like act a goddamn fool, like, because they were sheltered. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it feels like the DC fans might have been like repressed or something, and like maybe just because shit's been ass for so long, like you guys were like repressing all of your fandom or whatever. But like now, after Superman, like it's out there and you guys are just going fucking crazy on it. It's a little too much. Like, it's just a little too much. Like, I'm happy about DC as well. I'm excited about the future for DC and everything, but like, damn, dude, like the DC fans are just a little much. Okay. But I should also say that I actually want to thank the DC fans a bit, because dead ass, man, when I first heard these leaks, I was pretty down on them, and we're gonna get into it all. We're gonna talk about it, but you guys were so fucking annoying about it on the Discord this morning that now, like, all of a sudden I'm rooting for Marvel despite everything, despite how butthurt I am about all these leaks. I'm still, you know what? Fuck these DC fans. This shit's still gonna pop up. Steve Rogers? Fuck yeah. You know what? They're right. Everything went to shit after they got rid of Steve Rogers. The leaks are right. Maybe the Russos are cooking. Yes. So I just want to say thank you, DC fans, because sun was getting real low. I was getting real butthurt about all this shit. You guys brought me back, so thank you. I want to thank especially you, Braden Thompson, who's also Melvin. Thanks, bud. Appreciate you. Okay. Anyway, where to even begin today? Where to even begin? Different kind of stream, different kind of thing going on. Are you guys all fucking familiar with the leaks? Do you know what we're talking about? Should I just get into it all? Should we go topic by topic? What do you guys want to do? How do you guys want to do this? Thanos wants balance in the universe for Infinity War is more lame. Well, you know, look, that is an interesting point. I've seen some people bring this up as well. And here's what I'll say. Just because the plot's simple doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be bad. I mean, frankly, Deadpool and Wolverine had a mind-numbingly simple plot. And yet it's a really fun movie, and it's like a lot of spectacle and it's a lot of fun. Now, granted, I was hoping for something a little bit of more substance than Deadpool and Wolverine, because although it's really fun, like there's just not a lot to it. You know what I mean? So I was maybe looking for a little bit more, but at the same time, you don't really necessarily need an extravagant, crazy plot for it to be really good. So I guess we should TLDR some stuff, huh? Let's TLDR some stuff. Okay, so here, give me 1 second. Actually, I have to go check on. I'm so sorry, man. I will be right back. I have to check on something here, which I think I just gotta do this, and then this, and then I gotta do this. All right, leave that up there. Okay, so look, here's like the first place to start with, I think, is the evil Avengers rumor. Now, out of curiosity, I mean, a lot of you guys probably knew about this evil Avengers rumor, right? Like, I would assume a lot of you know about it. Let me know in the chat, right? Y'all know what I'm talking about? Like, this actually started in a couple of different ways here. And it's unfortunate because I think what is happening is fake leaks. I think Marvel has been doing this, and damn, dude, they got us again. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I got a lot of fucking criticisms of this whole thing that Marvel's doing here, because let me just skip to the end here. It's crazy to make fake leaks that are cooler than what you're actually doing. Please stop doing that. Now, we don't know for sure, right? We have to kind of speculate about this, but I'm thinking back to a couple of different projects. This includes Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four had some leaks very early on that ended up not being true. Okay, so this is stuff like their universe was going to be destroyed. This is stuff like Galactus wanted Franklin to reshape the universe, like stuff like that, right? Now, a similar thing happened with Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, I need you to just go with me on this, okay? Because we don't know for sure, but this is what it feels like it's happening. Yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine. The first round of Deadpool and Wolverine scoops, which came through a lot of normal sources and people, was about like Magneto and shit. It had Phoenix versus Scarlet Witch and all this stuff, and we were all like, yo, this shit's crazy. Ended up being the case that those were all fake leaks. That was stuff Marvel put out intentionally to throw the scoopers off the scene. Okay? So it kind of seems like that's going on again because look, Paul from Heavy Spoilers has incredible sources. Like he has, he's really connected. He has good sources. Paul made one of the first videos about Doomsday. And he made a big video about Scarlett Johansson and evil ScarJo and, her coming back. Now, this was on the heels of a lot of stuff that came out from like Alex Perez and some of these other people about, maybe some Maestro Hulk, maybe some Hydra Cap. Like it started to seem that way. By the way, even Jeff Snyder at the time started talking about the OGs returning as evil variants. Like he started talking about this, like a whole bunch of people started talking about this all at the same time. And then Paul's video hits. And the thing is, it's like, it seemed like that was all legit and all real. And I think this shaped a lot of the speculation, the theory crafting with regards to Avengers Doomsday. And I just want to be super clear here. We don't know for sure. This could still be in the movie, but I was told yesterday from a very reliable person that there's no Hydra Cap, there's no evil Avengers. All of that stuff was a fugazi. And in fact, I sort of asked this person, do you think this was another one of those fake leaks? And they said yes. You know what I mean? So, damn, right? Like, damn. So, look. On the one hand, sure, it's good to have fake leaks. And, after Fantastic Four came out, I was actually happy to have been surprised by some of the stuff in that film. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. Like, they actually figured out how to throw the scoopers off, right? And I think it has to do with this, like, fake leaks very early. And then that kind of, like, frames things differently, right? And, like, gets people to figure that out. The problem is, though, this actually hasn't really worked because after a little bit of time, everybody figured out what was going on and kind of found a way to get to the bottom of it. And I think ultimately the problem is there's so many leaks from Marvel that it's like, sure, they might be able to put some fake shit out, but as soon as they actually start making these movies, there's just so many motherfuckers that are going to find out what's really happening. Now, look, hopefully, chat, and I'm really hoping that this is true. Hopefully there are still secrets here. And I assume there are, not only because the movie's probably changing. Maybe some stuff we're going to talk about today will get changed and not actually be in the film or whatever. And hopefully just they have still figured out a way to throw people off. But like deadass, guys, like I'm a little disappointed in Marvel because all this shit is out there. Like this Luke Cage thing, the fucking house. Like, did they really think just making that dude named Luke Cage was going to be enough to actually throw people off the scent? Like, that just, like, I don't know. I feel like you just made it easier in some ways. I feel like you made the breadcrumb trail even easier by using this, like, elaborate fucking fake thing that then was really easy to identify after that, right? So, look, I'm just saying, like, bro, I don't know what the solution is for the leaks and for the scoops and everything like that. But ultimately, like, they still haven't fixed the problem. You know what I mean? They still haven't fixed the problem. Now, with all of that said, like, there's a part of me that's really hoping they did fix the problem because I'd like for this person I talked to be wrong. right? I would love it if the person I talked to didn't know what they were talking about. But my gut is telling me that this is what it is. Okay, my gut is telling me this is what it is. Rob, I see you, baby. We can get you in here, but give me a second. I got to go off for a little bit. So why is this even an issue? Okay, why is this an issue at all? Well, I think for me, and you would have to let me know. You would have to let me know what you think, chat. But for me, it feels a little bit bad that this other idea was presented, and it actually, here's what's so weird, right? So let's assume this is fake leaks. By the way, if you think it's fake leaks, throw a 1 into the chat. You know what I mean? Like, I'm interested. Do you think that these are actually fake leaks? Do you think this is what Marvel is doing? If it is, I feel like they fucked up, because the Dark Avengers leaks and the way Paul described it wasn't just like a leak. It was a leak that made sense. It had story, I was like, oh, dude, that is interesting. Yes, a lot of the newer Avengers would have a hard time coping with an evil version of the person they liked, all that. Like, it actually, it was juicy. And it's just like, Marvel, if your solution to this was, let's pick leaks that are so believable and so hyped up that the fans will buy into them, and then we'll do something completely different. That's a terrible fucking plan, dude. That's a terrible plan. See, do you see what I'm saying? Like, do you understand what I'm saying? That's a fucking terrible plan, because that has led to a scenario, I think, with probably Multiverse Madness, Deadpool and Wolverine to a degree, and Fantastic Four and honestly Thunderbolts, that the expectations for what will happen are so much cooler than what actually happens, right? Now, maybe not, right? Maybe Marvel is not putting these fake leaks out, and maybe it's literally the case that the most hyped up, fun, fanboyish shit gets out there, and people are like, yo, like, this is hype. This is it, and they buy into it. But, I almost don't believe that. I almost have to blame Marvel. It feels like that's the Occam's razor solution. It feels like Marvel is literally doing this. And again, I'm just like, bro, that's not how you do this, bro. So anyway, I had thought that the Dark Avengers storyline was really cool, really interesting. And I'm still hoping that it's real. Like, maybe it's just being hidden so well that, this person cannot conceive of a reality in which it's real. But I don't think so, man. I think it's really more Steve. Maybe the OGs that are there are actually there. But you know what? Another thing this makes me think of is, do you guys recall how crazy the pushback was from Scarlett Johansson? Scarlett Johansson has been very vocal about not being in Doomsday and the other one. And in fact, Scarlett Johansson had Marvel take her name off of the Thunderbolts movie as a producer. And I remember when all of that was going down, I'm just like, wow, she's really committed to this bit. It feels like she's really committed to not being in the movie. And then, you even think of she's in the Jurassic film, and the Jurassic film kind of ate both comic book movies lunch this year. Right? So it's like, damn, maybe she's not in this movie, bro. Maybe she's all the way over it. And they used a plan they had as misdirection to try to throw off the scent of what it actually is, right? So to me, this bit here is a little hard, man. It's a tough one, because I really do think it was cool. I was pretty convinced that it was real. And I also kind of low-key blame Marvel, dude. I kind of low-key blame Marvel. I actually do think they might be putting this shit out. It's maybe when you do the fake leaks, make them way more lame. You know? Because it just has felt like for a long time in the MCU that the fan theories are better than what Marvel does. In fact, we've talked about it many times, right? Like, it really feels like whatever the fans come up with, whatever the theories are, whatever the speculation is, they feel always better, more ambitious, more cool than what the studio does. And I don't know, I guess I just thought maybe for Doomsday, which seems like a pretty fucking important movie, you know, maybe Doomsday would have been a good time to break with tradition and actually do the craziest fucking most ambitious shit, man. And I just don't know. With what they currently have cooking, it doesn't seem like that's it. So, yeah. Anyway, what are your thoughts, man? What are your thoughts on the Dark Avengers stuff before we get into the rest of this? What are your thoughts? Do you think it was always a pipe dream? Do you think I was crazy? Did I get myself too hyped up? Am I to blame? Or is it Marvel? What do you think? Bro said he wasn't streaming, or am I tripping? No, I'm streaming. I'm streaming today. I said I wasn't streaming last night for the members. Josh's fault. Marvel's fault. I blame you, Josh. Maestro vs. Sentry would have been awesome. I know. Yeah. Dark Avengers is too much for this film. Yeah, maybe you're right. Look, can I ask another question? Can we go to the polls on something? How about this? How about this? Most of you guys know the leaks, right? Or should I TLDR the leaks real quick? Do you know the leaks? Or should I TLDR them? Because what I want to do is I want to go to the polls. And I want to know how you guys feel about it. Because maybe I'm crazy. Maybe you guys love it. Maybe you guys think this is dope. All right, let me TLDR the leaks. This is major fucking spoilers. Hopefully this is wrong. Hopefully there's more to it. Hopefully the person lied to me. I would rather look like a total dumbass in a couple of months than this shit be true. But just think about how the universe works. We don't get nice things. Okay, anyway. So, no Dark Avengers, no Hydra Cap, no nothing like that. Okay? Now, the crux of the leaks is that, you know, the multiverse is still collapsing, of course. And Dr. Doom, he has been studying the collapse of the multiverse. And he figured out what the problem is, and he figured out what the solution is. The problem is Steve Rogers. Okay? So, in the leaks, the new leaks, Dr. Doom will realize that when old Steve Rogers decided to go live with Peggy Carter, that is actually what destabilized the entire multiverse, started the incursions, and started the destruction of the multiverse. Now, we're going to talk more about that because there's actually a lot that I want to get into with that. It's like, what? But here's the point. He was not supposed to do that. He did it, and it breaks the multiverse. Okay. Here's where it gets weird. Dr. Doom's plan is to work with the Fantastic Four. Doom's going to basically explain to them that the incursions are happening. All these Earths are going to be destroyed, including their own. They're all going to go into 616 and work with the Avengers to go stop the incursion on the sacred timeline by going into the X-Men universe. Okay, so this is all kind of stuff we've heard, right? But the real thing that Dr. Doom is trying to do is get the attention of the TVA, or like get the TVA to be involved so he can find out how to get to the TVA. And he wants to time travel to prevent Steve Rogers from going to live with Peggy. Now, this is crazy, of course, because it's like, it's just weird, right? Like, that's not how time travel works. Like, they spent all this time in Endgame setting it up where it's like, that's not how that shit works. Once it happens, it happens. So maybe either Doom has the ability to do actual causal time travel, which we did see Loki do, in season 2, Loki has the power to do that, right? So maybe that's what it is. But he's going to try to use causal time travel to prevent Steve Rogers from going back in time to live with Peggy, thereby stopping the incursions. Okay. That's the basics of it. This is probably not going to work. In fact, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Multiverse collapse. Doom makes his way to where Loki is at and recreates Battleworld. Now, a lot of that, we already knew. Okay? Here's the other side of this that kind of sucks. And again, maybe there's more to it, but this is just what I was told. There's literally no reason that RDJ is Doctor Doom, right? So this theory that I had where Tony was a Stark variant, that's not what it is. He's literally just Doctor Doom. And maybe, it's possible he decides to wear the face of Tony Stark simply because he wants to pretend to be Tony Stark to win the trust of those Avengers. Like that is something that keeps coming up, and that I think is real. So maybe like that post-credit scene with the Fantastic Four, and the reason that Franklin's looking at his face or whatever is because Franklin can tell there's like magic that's there or whatever, and maybe he just made himself look like Tony Stark. I don't know. But it's either that or there's literally no reason. Now, this is why I think this is so silly. A lot of you guys did not like my theory, and I totally understand it. But the one thing I kept saying was it's either something incredibly meaningful like this or there's no good explanation. And, you know, there's this idea, right, that's in Deadpool and Wolverine, that Chris Evans is both Johnny Storm and Captain America. Okay? And I thought to myself, there is no way that they're just going to do that. Like, there's no way it's just, they just look the same. That's just how the multiverse works. But apparently, from what I'm hearing, that is what it is. Like, and again, hopefully this person's wrong. Hopefully there's more to it. I'm being told there is no fucking reason. Do you want to know what the reason is? They just wanted to cast RGJ. That's it. That's the reason. That's the reason. The reason is they just wanted to cast RGJ. And I'm like, there's no fucking way that's true. But we'll see. Like, that just seems so stupid. Okay. Anyway. So, what else can I say about it? Basically, the movie will get to the point where Doom is just trying to get to Loki to remake Battleworld because the entire multiverse has collapsed. I would imagine at that point, a lot of the characters that survive the collapse of the multiverse will either be in the TVA, in between different collapsing universes, maybe in like spaceships like the Ark or whatever. And I would imagine it's going to be pretty similar to 2015 Secret Wars. You know, the multiverse and Battleworld is recreated. Some people survive the original version of the universe to get into there. So, look, at the end of the day, plenty of room for really cool shit to happen. And maybe the anchor of Chris Evans and Steve wanting to go live a life, walking away from being a hero, maybe that does break the multiverse. And maybe that is an interesting enough idea to add enough tangible weight to the story and everything like that. But I feel underwhelmed. And the other thing is, like, I had heard this stuff about how, like, Doctor Doom was going to be in Iron Man 1. And I was like, oh, that's so intriguing. Apparently that shit's not true either. And it's like, I'm a little worried as I think about these leaks because it feels like the Kang stuff has just been ripped out completely, right? Like, you know, Alex had kind of hinted that He Who Remains and his choice to create the sacred timeline would be a big part of this movie, that Doom would essentially feel so wronged because there was not a Doom in the main sacred timeline or whatever, and this was intentional, and He Who Remains did this because he's like, fuck Dr. Doom. And I was like, oh man, that's kind of interesting. Dude, it feels like the shift to make it into Steve Rogers is that same energy where like Kevin Feige won't even say Jonathan Majors' name in an interview. And it's like, bro, like as somebody who's been personally one of the biggest defenders of all of this shit, and I basically just said like, I cannot believe that it is all just PR. There has to be story ideas here. There has to be something that is actually really important and influential. I'm not saying that there isn't, but what I am saying is it feels like these decisions were way too guided by corporate considerations, branding, public relations, like stuff that should not be affecting your story decisions. There was a way to move away from Kang and just recast him and have cool shit happen. And again, look, take it all with a grain of salt. Maybe it is. Maybe that still will happen, right? But I'm just personally a little disappointed because I had expected them to swing for the fences, go really crazy. Yeah. So that's the basics of the leaks. So here's what I want to know. Let's go to the polls. How do you feel about these leaks? And I guess you should answer as though they were true, right? So just consider like if they were true. And we'll go love them, like them, meh, and then hate them. Yeah, I'll give you guys some time to go over that, and then I'll catch up on some soupy chats here. I'll catch up on some soupies. Do you think we'll be getting RDJ Iron Man in Secret Wars? Yeah, I still believe that. Yep. Pretender says, what up, nerd fam, sending love. And Josh, you may have turned me on to Warhammer with that stream you did the other night. Maybe. Hashtag Blood Angels. Oh, that's good to hear, man. Yeah, we'll do more of those. I'm obviously loving Warhammer, having a good time getting into it. But, yeah, no, I'm happy for you. Blood Angels are really cool. The Beyonda says, leak makes no sense. When Steve Goes Back was a part of He Who Remains script, this was always supposed to happen. Well, apparently not. Apparently not. Apparently the whole thing is going to be Steve going back in time. That was not supposed to happen. And to be honest with you, there is a lot of intriguing stuff with regards to that. Like, that's kind of cool, and we could talk about that. We could think about that. There is, by the way, that scene in Loki season 1. And it really did look like Peggy Carter was being brought in to the TVA there. And so there could be something to like why those characters are not actually supposed to end up together. I don't know. I don't know exactly what it means. And if it has a deeper meaning, if it's cool, like I'd be down with that. I just don't know. I just don't know. Loki season 1 and 2 happened during Endgame before Steve Goes Back. Technically, you are correct. So it could be the case that He Who Remains has already lost the plot, literally. And that allows Steve to go back in time, frankly. Yep. Because technically, like, it's from a time heist, and then he jumps away, and then that's the TVA bringing him in. And then from there, we're kind of outside of time. Right? But, yeah, interesting. So we don't like the movie of Cap vs. Doom. We just get New Avengers, Thunderbolts, and F4. What about the X-Men? Make it make sense. So I can make it make sense as far as I understand it. Okay, so at the end of the day... All right, let me. Should I just try to, like, TLDR the whole fucking movie? I wasn't necessarily trying to do that. You know? Like, I wasn't necessarily trying to do that. Strictly Sports Production says, what if the leaks are expanded in the sense that Doom isn't just mad because of incursions, but also mad that the Avengers freed Loki, who ends up running the TVA? Yeah, maybe. There's all sorts of room for kind of cool stuff like that. Okay, I'll try to TLDR this. All right, I skipped your super. Sorry, let me catch up on these soupies here. Oh yeah, it's a $20 holla. That's very generous, brother. Thank you. Says we all hated the leaks for Superman, and then for some reason everybody liked the movie. That's true. The same could happen with Doomsday if this is real, but I think Marvel is better at hiding plot points than Gunn is. Yeah, that's fair. I think everything you said is fair. I would say that is something to keep in mind. You don't know how the leaks are going to hit you until you actually see the film. And especially with this movie, it's more than a year away. A lot of stuff, they're probably going to keep tweaking it. You know, they're going to test it. They're going to see what it is, see how it looks, etc. Probably get some test audience scores and whatnot and change it up. It could still work. And a lot of stuff that we might not like right now, we could end up loving, right? Now, I'll say this, like, performance is something that just does not come across in the leaks. And so the idea of Steve seeing this person that looks like Tony that's evil and wants to kill him is pretty cool. And I'd imagine the scenes there and the drama there could be really interesting. But I almost feel like if they were going to do this plot, I mean, look, I think there's a way that it'll still make sense. But I'm almost at a place where it should have just been evil Tony Stark. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I almost feel like, why is it Doctor Doom at all then? Like, why are we doing Doom at all? Like, if it were Superior Iron Man, dude, there's so many other ways I would have taken this. But anyway, let me get into these here. So we don't like the Cap movie versus Doom, New Avengers Thunderbolts, make it make sense. Okay, I'll talk about that in a second. Mad at Loki. Okay, let me try to TLDR this. Okay. So based on everything we've heard, let me try to kind of make sense of Doomsday and tell you how I think this movie's going to go. So, the beginning of the movie, Doctor Doom, we're going to see him with the Fantastic Four. He's going to be like, Reed, are you ready? Boom. Yes, let's go. Boom. And they go into 616. Okay. So they get there, and Doctor Doom will confront the 616 Avengers, and he's going to be like, I'm a Tony Stark variant from a different Earth named Doctor Doom. And they're all going to be like, that's tight, dude. That name is dope. I love the drip. Like, the cloak is really cool. This is nice. And also, you look just like Tony, so I believe you. You have my trust instantly, right? And he's going to be like, dope, cool, great. And then all the Fantastic Four are going to kind of be like this. And they're going to be like, Reed, why do you got that face? And then he's going to be like, no reason. No reason. This dude's totally trustworthy for sure. For sure. Okay? For sure. And they're going to be like, dude, you just look like you're lying. Like, your face, you just look like a liar. Like, are you lying about this shit right now? And then Johnny's going to be like, no. Dr. Doom's the best, man. Don't let the name fool you. On our Earth, if you're named Doom, it actually means you're a hero and shit. And then everybody's like, okay, cool. We're going to go with this. Because I just get a feeling that you were paid $80 million to be in these movies. So we're just going to go with it. So then all the Avengers that think they're working with a Tony Stark variant are going to go into the X-Men universe. And they're going into the X-Men universe so that they can get Monica Rambeau and stop the incursion. So like, oh shit, big old incursion happening. Oh no, things are really bad. And we better go get Monica. And then they all go there. Doctor Doom's going to send all the Sentinels. Massive fight against all of the X-Men universe and all the X-Men team. And then at the end of the day, this is all probably just to get the TVA to show up. The TVA shows up. Doom flips the script, grabs the TVA person, goes to the TVA. From there, he's going to go after Steve Rogers. Somehow, some way, probably due to Pedro. Pedro will probably be like, oh, you know what? Shit, I was lying this whole time. He's actually going to go kill Steve Rogers, your favorite hero. And he's going to do that before he goes to live with Peggy because it destroyed the whole universe. Okay? So then the other characters probably then travel. Oh, here's something else I learned, which is so silly. Do you remember how like America Chavez is a character that can literally make portals between universes? You'd think they would probably like use her in the movie, but they're not. Instead, it's just Franklin Richards. Like Franklin just becomes the way that they travel through universes. So anyway, point is, I think what's going to happen is at some point, Doom is going to be revealed to be trying to use the TVA tech, maybe combined with some Doom tech, maybe just combined with Franklin's powers, and he's going to try to go back into actual causal time and kill Steve Rogers before he gets into that world. I think the Avengers are going to then go to when Steve kind of like first shows up in that universe through probably time travel, and they're going to try to grab him and save him. And maybe they do, but then the entire multiverse collapses. And then Doom's like, fuck it. Now I got to get to Loki to reset everything. And the Avengers try to stop him from getting to Loki. Maybe Loki has people, then he's trying to stop him as well. And then everything ends. Doom recreates the multiverse and it ends. That's about what I think is going to happen. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, could that be awesome? For sure. There's a lot of ways that the mystery could be built well. One of the things I can't get over, one of the things I'm like kind of trying to wrap my head around is like, so how can the Fantastic Four just sit there and have him lie to the Avengers? Do you know what I mean? Like, why and how would the Fantastic Four just be willing to dead-ass lie to all of these different heroes? And the explanation I was given is, like, they just don't want their universe to be destroyed. But, like, bruh, that's kind of tough. Like, I don't know. And then what's the deal with Doom anyway? So here's another question. Right? So what about Steve living with Peggy created all of these incursions? How is that even a thing? Like, why is that a thing? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, for real. Why would that be so bad? Just some kind of cosmic rule? Yeah, I don't know, man. Should have been Steve and Natasha anyway. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I'm just like, so wait a minute. You're telling me, so he goes back. Here's another question too. Is he on the sacred timeline, or did he create another? It seems like this would imply that he had to create a branch timeline that threw everything off, right? I don't know, man. It just feels so messy. Like in Loki, we're presented with this idea that if these timelines are not pruned, incursions will happen, multiversal war. Okay? So that stops happening, and then we're like, oh shit. And then they have this concept of the loom, right? And the whole idea of the loom is like, oh, well, if things get out of hand, if there's some multiversal incursion bullshit, everything just gets destroyed down to the sacred timeline again. And the loom spins it all back into what it's supposed to be. Right? But it's like, wait a minute. So did you know then that Steve was always going to do this at some point, and that would be the start of everything? And was the loom just because Steve would do some shit like this? Like, bro, make it make sense. If it was so bad that it could not happen, I don't know. I just feel like this is not really a well thought out plan. Like, this does not actually feel like everything they were building is towards this. Now, one thing I will say is that it does seem like Cap putting the stones back was always a thing that was always going to play into whatever they were doing here, because the Nomad show rumors were real. I don't think you're going to get that show anymore, by the way. I hope we do. We need it more now than ever. But it almost feels like they took what they always knew they were going to play off of, and now they're making it the whole thing. And in place of an actual explanation or a full-ass show that would show us what happened, we're just going to have to go with it. Like, they're basically just being like, oh, you're just going to have to go with it. When Steve made this call, he fucked everything up. And it's like, I don't know, man. Like, I have trouble just buying into that. I don't understand the physics of it. I don't see how any of it was set up. You know? And it also kind of low-key feels like they were like, we need to figure out a way to get Steve Rogers back with the Shield. You know what I mean? Like, does this kind of feel like just getting Steve Rogers Captain America back again with extra steps? Like, this just feels like they are making a you know, they always like this meta shit, right? It feels like the most meta shit in the world, where they're like, dude, when Steve Rogers chose to not be in this shit anymore, it all fell apart. It also kind of makes me feel that when Feige made those comments recently about, like, why did Captain America 4 bomb or whatever, he's like, well, it's the first one without Steve Rogers. It's like, bro, like, what's going on up there, bud? You know? Like, what? I don't know. I guess I'm curious. I'm curious as to how you guys feel about it. At the end of the day, maybe it's fine. You know? Maybe it didn't need to be the craziest, most expansive, fucking awesome idea. And maybe there'll still be plenty of surprises. The performances will be great. When we actually see it in the film, it'll make sense. Like, I will remind you that not just in Superman, but in Fantastic Four, there were things that came out that were leaked that we had a bad impression of, but ultimately were very good. So, like, we heard Ben doesn't say it's clobbering time. And at first I was like, ooh, that's tough. Like, he should say it. But now we realize, oh, well, that was because they wanted to make it a thing and play off of it. And then it's a cool moment when he finally says it. Same thing with Silver Surfer, man. Female Silver Surfer. Like, at first we were all like, what is this? And then you sort of understand it. It's like, oh, they did that so that it would be a romantic thing with Johnny. Totally works, right? Same thing with Superman. Like, there was a whole bunch of stuff we heard, and we kind of roll our eyes and we're like, oh my God. And then you see it in the movie and you're like, wait, no, that actually works. Or that was just in passing. That wasn't as big of a deal as I thought, right? So there's a lot of ways that this could still be really cool. I'm just personally a little bitter because I thought they were going to go for it way more. Like, bro, like, dude, okay, I'll just tell you this. So I was working on this big video yesterday. I had to throw it all out completely, okay? But I was going to make the point that what Doom should do, especially, like, let's consider if He Who Remains was really the person behind this. He Who Remains decided, no, Dr. Doom. He Who Remains maybe even decided Dr. Doom will be raised as Tony Stark in this timeline, okay? So that's what happens. Well, what if Dr. Doom then got the TVA technology, he went back to Iron Man 1, he kills Iron Man, creating a branch timeline, and then within that branch timeline, his whole focus is to get Steve Rogers to turn evil. Because he realizes if Steve Rogers goes dark side, all the dominoes fall, all the heroes become dark. Maybe Doom realizes he could make his own evil Avengers by doing what He Who Remains did to him. To the sacred timeline, this bastardization of the sacred timeline. And then you go back to that moment when Steve was very vulnerable after Peggy dies, right? And then Steve is confronted by Dr. Doom, who's like, hey man, just, you know, all this suffering, This was written down. Here's the script. And then Steve would be like, what is this? As he's at his lowest, he's completely disillusioned. And then Doom gets him to flip and go dark side, become Hydra Captain America. And then everybody else becomes dark side. Why? Because then we realize, oh, Steve was actually why these heroes became heroes in the first place. He's the one that turns Nat. He's the one that helps to turn Hawkeye. Cap was the moral heart of the whole thing. He's the one that makes Banner feel accepted. He's the one that turns Tony. Without Cap, Tony doesn't become that guy that snaps his fingers and says, I am Iron Man. It's all predicated on the character of Steve Rogers. So why not use that idea? Why not flip that idea on its head? Why not have the inverse of that be the threat and thereby kind of bringing it into question how meaningful the first thing was in the first place by then. And then you set that thing up to regain its relevancy by literally and figuratively defeating its evil counterpart. Like, I just think that's cool. I think that's cooking. And I think what this is just like kind of not. So I don't know, man. Maybe I'm crazy. Ghostbound says with a 10 spot off topic, I want to style R-rated Marvel movie with Arcade, trapping a few heroes in Murder World. What do you think about the villain Arcade? Arcade could be cool. Arcade could be cool. You could do some fun stuff with that, almost like a Tron-esque, kind of thing. I like what they did in X-Men 97 with it. So, yeah, that could be cool. That could be cool. Let's see here. Zach Attack. Where you at, Zach? Says, I think Steve is in a universe while other Cap is still in the ice, taking the mantle Nomad, causing a branch timeline, kind of similar to Miguel in Into the Spider-Verse. I don't understand what you're saying here. I think Steve is in a universe where the other Cap is still in the ice. Maybe, yeah. Taking the mantle of Nomad, causing a branch timeline. Could be, yeah. Could be. So, has anybody thought about why this would be so bad? Like, does anybody have a good theory as far as why Peggy and Steve being together would, like, break reality? Like, why? I saw Shine asking for new scoopers recently. Isn't it possible she got bad scoop and Marvel is trying to hide the real leaks that came out? It is, of course, possible, and I'm actually hoping that is what it is. I don't think so. All I can say to you is my instinct here tells me this is real and that the Dark Avengers stuff was not real. Because here's the thing, like, a ton of reliable people hinted at the Dark Avenger stuff. I mean, Paul made a whole ass video about it. And Paul is not just going to make shit up. I know for sure he was told that by somebody that either he had gotten info from before, that he was confident had connections to Disney. What that means is Disney put that out there. Just like with the Deadpool thing, just like with the Fantastic Four thing. They are putting out fake leaks. That's what I think is happening. But yeah. The Exodus with a 10 spot. Appreciate you, man. Says, the Russos said 2 Steve existed currently in 616 past. 2, Marcus and McFeely said Steve didn't create any incursions or branches. 3, given this and the MCU canon with incursions, how can this make sense? Yeah, so look, I think we have to accept the fact, like here's what's interesting about this whole Cap thing, right? Technically speaking, this was very controversial when it happened. A lot of people let it go, and there were a lot of other bad things that happened after this. But technically speaking, there were a lot of folks that said, this is actually really bad writing because Steve would never do this. Do you guys remember that? Like, that was a thing, man. Like, it was dead ass a thing after this movie came out. Whole bunch of comic book fans were like, this is actually breaking the character of Steve Rogers, right? And a lot of people have chimed in on this. So the Russos chimed in on it. McFeely and them chimed in on it. But you know who else chimed in on it? Michael Waldron. Michael Waldron chimes in on this around the time of Loki. He spoke to this too, and he had a different interpretation as well. And I think the reality is we can't take, like, it's interesting to look at what the McFeely said back in the day. It's interesting to look at what the Russo said. Yeah, I don't know. It's possible that they all knew this was a dangling thread, and it's possible they knew this would be something they would pick up on, because it does seem like the whole Nomad thing and him putting the stones back, that was always going to play into this, right? Because they were going to make that Nomad show for sure. So yeah, kind of interesting. The Truester says, sorry, wait, let me touch on this. But this is interesting. Alex just apparently said something about Doom. The TVA says what the Avengers did was supposed to happen. Yes, as far as time travel, yeah. Also, is it possible we got and they're just doing something we haven't heard of before? Yeah, of course that's possible. It's always interesting to consider that. They said the time heist was supposed to happen, and I think it was. I think the only thing that was not supposed to happen was Steve staying with Peggy. Maybe there were even a ton of different universes or branches where he goes to see her, but he leaves. All right? But it kind of seems like what happened was he went back in time to the 60s and actually lived out his life on the sacred timeline, staying out of all of that shit and just being there. And I'm like, but that doesn't make sense, because if that's what it was, why would there be an incursion? It had to create a different timeline. It had to. Something happened there that broke He Who Remains plan. Now, this is the other thing, though, that I can't understand. Is like, why would that even matter? I mean, it reminds me a little bit of Loki and Sylvie, right? So, like, Loki and Sylvie getting together caused a branch timeline that, like, went right towards the red line. And it reminded me a bit of what happened with Deadpool and Wolverine, where, like, their bond is so strong that it kind of, like, forms a new anchor being for the timeline. So maybe that's what it is. Like, maybe when Steve decided to stay, he created a branch of the sacred timeline that somehow would create the rest of the multiverse outside of the purview of He Who Remains. So I've seen some people speculate, okay, so the only reason Doctor Doom even starts to pop up at all is because of Steve Rogers, right? But then it's like, okay, but if that's true, then why would Doom want to kill him before he goes? None of this shit is making sense. There has to be more to it. There has to be more to it. Anyway, okay. So, the Truester said, also, Alex P. just scooped Doom will have a team, and that Steve joins the battles because this event was too big, too important not to help. Is Alex off then? No, Alex is not off. He's just not telling you everything he knows. Like, I'm pretty sure Alex knows exactly what I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure. He's being a bit cagey with how he answers those questions, and, a hero's work is never done and all that, which is technically true. I mean, the other Avengers, from what I understand, the other Avengers with Carol Danvers are going to find Steve before Doom does. So in a sense, he is recruited to just join the battle and stop. And it's all about stopping Doom. Ironically, he's going to try to stop Doom from killing himself, which is kind of weird. But yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. Yeah. Dylan says, I feel like the casuals don't care about this new cast of Avengers. Who's the main character of Doomsday? The main character of Doomsday is Doctor Doom. But, I mean, it's going to be the Fantastic Four, the Thunderbolts, Sam Wilson's team, and the X-Men. And a little bit of TVA Loki stuff. But that's what it is. That's what the team is, yeah. Plenty of fish in the sea, Steve. You had to break the damn world to stay with yours? Bravo, sir. Yeah, for sure. The sacred timeline holds the entire multiverse together, but if Steve fucked it up by staying in the sacred timeline, then it's easy to understand why the incursions are happening. Well, it's easy to understand if you just say that that's the explanation. When you take it a step further and try to understand, like, within the context of what we know, what is the explanation for a series, not just one incursion, but a series of incursions occurring when there doesn't appear to be another universe created? That's what doesn't make sense. And if it does create another universe, why does that universe create all of these incursions? Like, so in the comics, right, the incursions actually make way more sense. In the MCU, we don't ever get a really good explanation. Like, at one point in Multiverse of Madness, they say the longer you are here, the more you hurt the strength of the fabric of space-time, and the more likely there is an incursion. But that doesn't even make any fucking sense. Like, what do you mean? So just being in another universe makes an incursion more likely? Well, what caused the first incursion then? The incursions only happen when people start going into other universes? I don't know about that shit. Like, I think they had a lot of... Here's what I think it is. And this is why I'm kind of bummed about it. I think they had a lot of really cool ideas. And I think a lot of those cool ideas got tossed aside to try to just make some simple things happen. You know? Like, the anchor being concept is literally just created so that Deadpool and Wolverine's plot will work. And maybe there was a time when the anchor being concept was going to play a huge role in everything that was happening. But Steve is not an anchor being. That is not what happened. So I'm so fucking confused as for, like, what are anchor beings? Does that have anything to do with anything? Why did Steve choosing to be with Peggy create all the incursions and lead to the destruction of everything? How does Doctor Doom think he can go back and prevent that? Like, because that's not a thing. Like, that's not a thing. You know? So there's just, I have a lot of questions, man. I have a lot of questions. Floss Angelis with a $10 or $100. Holy damn, appreciate you, bro. I might take tomorrow off now, you know. Woo! Paid time off. I'm just kidding. Why every MC movie in the Multiverse Saga wasn't multiverse-centric is beyond me. Black Widow, Black Panther 2 should have been set in different universe that tie in later. Legit reason to recast T'Challa. Natasha being alive makes sense. MOM fell short. Could have been Civil War level. Yep, I agree. I agree with you, and I like Multiverse of Madness, but it should have been way bigger. And it is crazy. Like, I don't know. They just fucked it all up, man. It was, and the other thing is, like, so Fantastic Four, right? They remove a lot of the multiversal elements. And I don't think it mattered at all. The thing's going to, like, barely make $500 million. Like, dude, a lot of the decisions that Kevin has been making recently are just not great. Now, as a leader, not all of your decisions are going to be great, you know, and you're going to fuck up. You got to own it, but you got to make more good decisions than bad decisions. And also, the right good decision at the right time will overcome a ton of wrong decisions. However, the opposite is true as well. The wrong decision at the wrong time can undo years of making the right decisions. And I can't help but think that we are in a tricky spot because a ton of terrible decisions have been made. And it feels like the plot of Doomsday is just like, let's just try to get all these characters in one movie so that nobody complains. Let's try to drive towards Battleworld. Let's try to just get to Battleworld because Battleworld is going to be crazy and we can break all the rules and do everything we really want. We have to have some semblance of a story that people that enjoyed Endgame are going to be able to understand. So therefore, we'll anchor it with Steve Rogers and this Peggy Carter thing. Don't mind the fact that that doesn't make any fucking sense when you really think about it. And there's actually no real reason that RDJ looks like Doctor Doom or that Doctor Doom is played by RDJ. We're just going to go with it. It's going to be crazy. People will get hyped up. And by the time they realize that there's no explanation, it won't matter because they got to see what's going on in Secret Wars. And it's like, ooh. Hope I am wrong. You know? Hope I am wrong. Because, like, oof, that's tough, man. I'm on Central Time, so when you said noon, I thought you meant 11 for me, and YouTube didn't notify me. Could you do a quick recap? I'd appreciate, if not, I can catch up later. Nerd Avengers for life. A recap of what, sir? The leaks? The Exodus says, maybe duplicates of anchor beings crash reality. I mean, sure, but why, like... I just, like, maybe. But if it's the sacred timeline, like it's the sacred timeline, it's the sacred one, you know? Ascending Rumble, are you in here? Are you in here still? Did somebody TLDR the leaks for you, or do I still need to do that? Oh, okay. I'll TLDR. All right, TLDR. No Dark Avengers, no evil Avengers, no evil Natasha Romanoff, no evil Captain America. Doctor Doom going to be working with the Fantastic Four and the Avengers to try to stop the incursions. And his real plan is to find the location of Steve Rogers on the sacred timeline, probably. And he actually wants to use causal time travel. Somehow he's able to time travel in a way that is different than what they did in Endgame. And he wants to go back to the moment before Steve goes to live with Peggy, and he wants to kill him. And he thinks if he kills Steve Rogers before that happens, it will prevent all the incursions and stabilize the multiverse. This is not going to work because the heroes are going to save Steve, dooming the multiverse technically, and having the whole multiverse be destroyed, and then Doom will get to where Loki is at, and he will make Battleworld. So that's the TLDR. The other thing is there's really no reason that Doom looks like Tony. So there you have it. Floss Angeles with another 20. Holy damn, very generous. Says, like, imagine for an alternate universe Black Panther 2, it's actually Shuri that dies and the new T'Challa mourns her death, only to be reunited with the 616 version of her in Doomsday and or Secret Wars. Stuff like this should have happened. I totally agree with you. Mirror it. Have them come together. Both of their losses become fulfilled by each other. Great brother-sister way to do this. Wow, you're really cooking. That would be really cool, except, nope, not going to happen. And, you know, I keep coming back to this quote from the Russo brothers. I brought this up the other day. I wonder if you guys remember this or not. There was an interview, I think it was in 2022. I believe it was in Wired magazine. And the Russo said something like, what you're going to see with Disney is they're actually going to be very conservative with their brand for the next several years. And they actually tied that into a statement about how you would get more Marvel content than you could handle for the next 10 years, but it would all be super safe. And I was just like, oh man, I keep going back to that. And it just sucks because, like, did the Russo, like, I just had thought that the Russos coming back, and there's still possibility for this. I feel like almost like we're at a funeral or whatever, and we're mourning the death of this thing, and there's no reason to do that. We really don't know. We're speculating, right? But part of the reason why it's a little bit bitter is I was hoping the Russos came back and wanted to actually shake things up and had a story to be able to eclipse what they had even done in the past. And that there was something here that, like, despite everything that had happened, despite every reason for fans to think it was just break glass in case of emergency, this was actually somewhat thought out, or at the very least, we were going to get the best jugglers of all time in the Russos to come back and juggle this bullshit and make sense of it. And the reason I don't like these leaks is it feels like they're being safe at every turn. It feels like this assignment is really more to get everybody a little bit of screen time and then just get us into Secret Wars than it is to actually tell a satisfying story. That is not great, you know. But you know, hoping I'm wrong, and maybe this shit's still gonna be cool, and also too, like, maybe it is about Secret Wars. Like, maybe I'm overthinking it, which, by the way, fucking sent me, dude. Somebody on the video earlier today was like, just Josh overthinking things again. Oh my God, I almost jumped through the fucking screen. You guys know I hate that shit. Of course I overthink things. That's why I got this fucking job, so I can overthink things and yap into this microphone about all the nerdy shit. Leave me alone. But anyway, the point is, man, maybe I am overthinking it. Fuck. Like, maybe I'm just like, oh, man, all my theories are wrong. Boo fucking who. And at the end of the day, it could be really cool. Also, too, like, maybe I'm overthinking it in the sense that it doesn't even need to be that. Like, maybe at the end of the day, everybody was right. It was never going to be Infinity War and Endgame. It's just never going to be that. It's kind of cool. Yeah, we want to see what's going on with RDJ Doom. Fuck it. We'll show up because we're interested, and what the fuck else are we going to do? You know? And maybe at the end of the day, that's all this shit needed to be. And the mystery around Secret Wars and Battleworld and the promise of how cool that could be, like, maybe that's what it is. You know? Maybe that's what it is. Should I call Rob? Rob says call Rob. I'll call you, Rob. Give me a second here, brother. Maybe you can talk me off the ledge. Not that I'm on the ledge, but you know, fucking, I'm on the ledge, Rob. I'm on the fucking ledge, Rob. Rob, I'm on the fucking ledge. All right, let me try to call Rob. Oh, fuck. Brutal Bear says, I might be on an island with this take, but I'd rather continue half-baked Marvel with no Marvel at all. Nerd vengeance for life. Nerd vengeance ain't easy. Yeah, that's true. I mean, look, here. If the options are either have no Doom or have Doom in a way that's not the way I would have done it, I'm going to pick have Doom. Duh. You know what I mean? And to be honest with you, like, look, a lot of you guys should be happy because I think it's just traditional Doom. I think he is dead ass just Victor Von Doom in a different timeline. And he's going to, maybe he kind of looks like Tony. Maybe that's a spell. But he's just Doom. A lot of you guys are probably going to like that shit. But at the end of the day, what that means is it really is just Doom out of fucking nowhere. Like, you know what I mean? Like, out of fucking nowhere, bro. Like, at least my shit would have been like, oh, okay, I can see how this all connects, you know? But now, it's just Doom, like, out of fucking nowhere. Like, who are you? Oh, I'm Dr. Doom. They're like, okay. All right, then. All right, let me make sure this is... I gotta fix this thing here, and then I'm gonna call Rob, okay? On the speakers. All right, Rob. I'm calling, bud.
Yo,
what up?
what's up, man? Okay, can you hear me?
I got you, and I think chat can hear you too. So,
Yeah, can you hear me?
guys, you got
Everybody
it,
in the
right?
chat.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Okay.
Cool. So yeah, what do you think, man? You heard the leaks. What do you think?
Hold me now. I'm 6 feet from the edge, and I'm thinking.
Oh no, are you
maybe 6 feet?
Are you
one of the greatest songs from one of the worst bands in the history of
it is a good
music.
song. Yeah.
Yeah, Creed sucks.
You think we're cooked?
Yeah.
Rob? What is
those leaks are ass. Okay, if it's true, those leaks are garbage.
Oh,
like
no.
that's really, really bad. Okay, so this is 100% anecdotal, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't scale to like the entire movie going audience. After the Fantastic Four, I hit my sister up and I asked her if she was going to go see it.
Yeah.
And she was like, I'll wait till it comes out on streaming. And then I asked her, are you going to see Superman? And she's like, probably not. And I asked why. And she was like, because I don't care about Superman. So the Fantastic Four part is what really stuck out with me, because then she changed her tune. And she's like, I might go see it now. And I asked her why. And she's like, well, because the reviews are saying it's good. And that right there summarizes everything going on with the MCU. And with this, if this leaks are true, it stinks of just bad taste and desperation.
Yeah.
Because there were so many better ways to handle Doom.
Yeah.
Well, have you been following Bo DeMaio on Twitter?
Yeah.
He's been going on a tear.
Oh yeah.
Right, like for the last like 2 or 3 days, he's been going on a tear, just kind of reading the riot act. Now, take it for what it's worth, right? I mean, at the end of the day, he's a disgruntled former employee.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm sure there may be some truth there, but better than 0% of what he's saying is also just anger at Marvel.
Sure.
So, but one of the things that he's talking about, and one of the things this feels like, is he was talking about how the idea of Marvel incorporating comic book content is just frowned upon.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, don't come here with your comic book knowledge and your comic book stories. We're telling our own stories. And this kind of feels like that.
Yeah.
Right. No, I mean, I don't think any reasonable person would have expected them to adapt the incursions from Marvel Comics into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because even for a comic book fan, that's multiple movies. And even if you're not doing like a one-to-one adaptation, right? So we're not getting like, a movie that focuses on like the Red Planet that comes back later on.
Sure.
And is important, right? And they use it to like protect themselves from the Shi'ar. Like, even if we're leaving all that stuff out, like there's still a lot of things, right? You got the Black Priests, you have the Beyonders as the Ivory Kings, you've got the Molecule Man explaining the nature of the Molecule Man, the history of the Molecule Man, the whole retcon of it. I mean, there's so many things that you cannot do. But the idea of Marvel just coming out with this movie and being like, okay, guys, so the plot of this film is that like Doctor Doom wants to kill Steve Rogers because Steve knocking boots with Peggy Carter when he wasn't supposed to basically is laying waste to the multiverse.
Right, dude. What a
And it's like,
no, Rob, no.
Yeah, it's like really, right? So Captain America killed the multiverse because he was clapping cheeks. Like, that's what you're telling me?
Yeah.
Right? Like, is this like a giant? Is this like a
dead ass what they're saying, bro? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a 1990s propaganda campaign that's like against, it's like, abstinence is the best. And it's just like, it's like, what even? Like this is stupid. Like this is the dumbest thing that I've ever heard of. Number two, if that's the case, it flies in the face of everything about Steve Rogers, and not even like the nature of Steve Rogers, but it flies in the face of the fact that like that was his happily ever after, right? That was his send off. Right, that was like, following Steve Rogers' story from Avengers, from Captain America 1, all the way up to Avengers Endgame, and it was less. His story wasn't nearly as in depth as Tony Stark's, but I think it was more emotional.
I agree. Yeah.
Right, than Tony Stark's, and so it was like you get to the end of Avengers Endgame, and everybody in the audience just kind of nods their heads subtly, and it's like, yeah, he kind of deserves this.
Yeah.
And like that's he finally gets to have that life with Peggy Carter. And then Blarg, Doctor Doom doesn't like that, Blarg, right? And it's like, we got to undo it all. And it's just like, why? Like why? They would have been much better served if they really wanted to get rid of the Kang Dynasty, or if they just want to like write the Kang Dynasty out. They would have been much better served if it just turned out that like all the superheroes on Doctor Doom's Earth died because of one of the Kangs. And he killed that Kang. And then he destroys the Kang Dynasty. And then he takes their place and just gets drunk with.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Became a Sith Lord. Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, you dropped out for a second, but you're good. You're back.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like Anakin Skywalker became a Sith Lord for the most hand-wavy reason ever, right? Like, I'm having these dreams that my wife is dying, so I'm going to doom the galaxy to 20 years of pain and suffering. Right? I mean, and we're just kind of like, yeah, that makes sense, right? Yeah. So, I mean, you can get away with a lot of hand-wavy stuff, so long as at the end of the day, it gets to like the point that people expect it to, and the point that people were told that it was supposed to get to, right? Yeah. There's an infinite number of ways to like handle what was going on with like Anakin and all that kind of stuff, right? But that's the one we got, and people are just kind of like, cool,
yeah.
His insecurity doomed the galaxy, right? And so it's just kind of like, all right. With Doctor Doom, and this is I actually made a video about this on Twitter, right? And maybe not to necessarily go off on this great big huge tirade about like everything wrong with the MCU, but like there's no sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Right. And there's no sense of like, here's why you should give a damn. And I think that if this leak is true, it kind of feeds into that.
Yeah.
Right. It feeds into, the whole, hey, we lost our Trinity for the new Trinity for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because the rights for Spider-Man went back to Sony, Chadwick Boseman passed away, and Brie Larson was harassed to the point where she didn't even want to be a major player in the MCU, right? Some of which she brought on herself, and some of which was just completely, uncalled for. So now we don't know what to do, right? Okay, well, let's do like Kang, right? I mean, there's no reason to do King. King was never interesting enough to build anything around, but we can change that, right? I mean, what was it 15 years ago? People said the same thing about Tony Stark. You know?
Sure.
But then Jonathan Majors and everything pops off. So it all just kind of feels like they're panicky.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between having all your plans blow up in your face and then having the wherewithal to look around and say, okay, but like we can still recover from this and we can still make it work. And having all your plans blow up in your face and then just descending into madness and just throwing out, you know, whatever feels like it works.
Yeah.
And for all the problems the Marvel Creative Committee had, which you've read Johanna Robinson's book and you know about them all, right? Like all the problems that they also had some really good things.
Sure.
And if there was any one thing that Brian Michael Bendis and Dan Buckley and Joe Quesada and all those guys were good at, it was being able to pivot and being able to know how to adapt stories to what was going on, because it's what they were known for. Joe Quesada saved Marvel from bankruptcy. Well, partially saved Marvel from bankruptcy.
Yeah.
Brian Michael Bendis, right, is shitty as some of his stories were and how the guy just couldn't stop talking in the stories, right? There was more talking than action.
Yeah.
The guy knew how to write stories in a way that could potentially blend in with everything else going on.
Oh, yeah.
The biggest downside is oftentimes he didn't.
Yeah, for sure. But he did heavy lifting at that time, especially after they lose Kirkman. He did some heavy lifting.
Yeah, like Brian Michael Bendis between 2000 and like 2007 was pretty solid. After that, he just kind of becomes like, I'm Bendis, I can do whatever I want, right? And just like wrote stories that totally defied continuity. Right. Before a period of time, he was really, really great at writing stories that fit in with continuity. But as it stands now, it's just kind of like, what the hell, right? It's just it feels so scattered, so disorganized, and so all over the place.
Yeah.
Right. And the idea of it being tied in, you know, with Steve Rogers, I feel like just kind of makes it even worse. You know, the point that I would make here, though, and to the point that you were talking about earlier, with regards to all these ideas of the plot threads, right? So like Black Panther's son, or what is an anchor being? How do the incursions work? I think very little of that is going to be I think they're just racing to Doomsday and Secret Wars. They're going to soft reboot. They're going to Crisis on Infinite Earths, the multiverse, and like that's going to be it. So I think a lot of those things aren't going to be explained. I still say like the best explanation for the incursions is to just say like everybody's anchored to the reality. But how many people ever actually leave it?
Yeah.
Or even know that they're part of a multiverse?
Well, there's just like, there's so much about it that doesn't make sense. Like the anchor being thing is like, what is even the point? Like, what do you mean? Like, so there's a singular being on a timeline that's connected to it. So if that being's not immortal, then like, what does it mean? That the universe, it doesn't exist before that being is born? Is that like a branch point when they get born? Like, how does the universe exist before they're there? And then it's like, okay, but then it takes millions of years for the universe to die after that. So what even is the fucking point of this thing? Like, what is the anchor being? The anchor being is literally just so that he goes after Wolverine. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's all it is so that he goes after Wolverine to try to save his world. And it's a reverse engineered, like, plot point for that. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense.
I mean, the only way to get around that, the only way to escape that issue and to make anchor beings make sense, if they wanted to bring that in and they wanted to involve it in Steve Rogers, is to say that anchor beings are like queens on a chessboard, right? That outside of knights, they can move any way they want to. They can go anywhere, they can do anything. And they will not negatively impact the direction of the universe, right? So, I mean, I would have said that, you know, anchor being, like, I would have gone with the old school theory that so many of us had. Anchor beings were just the Marvel Cinematic Universe equivalent of Molecule Man. So, like, if an anchor being dies, their universe goes with it. Yeah. And, like, that's it, right? So if they die, they have to die of natural causes. They cannot die of an unnatural death.
Sure.
Right, you know, but that went out the window with Wanda, who was the anchor being at the time. That went out, you know, unless she's still alive or something like that. But the bigger issue, or I guess the bigger point here is, if they say anchor beings are individuals who can run through the time stream and have an effect on the time stream, or they can do anything they want to in the time stream without actually affecting the direction of time, then that would be the explanation for how Steve Rogers could go back, put the Infinity Stones back to where they're supposed to be, and then have a life with Peggy Carter.
Yeah.
But because, I mean, him having a life with Peggy Carter is not going to directly impact the time stream in any meaningful way, because but that presents any number of other quandaries, because at that point now, it's he can affect. He can do anything he wants to without affecting the time stream. Cool. Does that apply to Peggy Carter?
Yeah.
Right. It does. Like, how does that work? Right. Like,
Yeah.
how do you square that circle?
Well, I think,
and that's why.
Well, just to go back to what you were saying about like the creative committee and everything, I think it's important because it's like they used to be able to lean on that group, and when things got messy, and then the other thing, and look, I hate to admit this, but you have to if you want to be fair. James Gunn was one of these people too. Like, Gunn was somebody that Feige could go to, and Gunn could figure solutions out because he had this vast comic book knowledge, and he could, like, you know, tap into other things and figure it out. And look, Marvel has always played jazz, so there was always a bit of like when they, by the way, Bendis actually, right? I don't know if you know this, right? I think you probably know this. I think it was in that book. Bendis is the one that writes all of the different versions of the post-credit scene for Iron Man 1, right? So, like, they were leaning on people to just, like, figure this out and set up little Easter eggs and things that maybe we could pay off later. And they were damn good at, like, figuring it out down the line. But what we're seeing right now is that, like, it got so out of control, and there was just so much, like, just damage and different ideas on top of ideas and trying to jump into this thing. It is so lost. And then the other question is, and I think this is what everybody's thinking, is are they in their own way because they refuse to just directly adapt comics?
Oh, 100%.
Right.
100% they're in their own way because of that, right? Yeah. Like, so one of the things that Bo DeMaio was talking about is he was talking about Luis Desposito, or Luis Desposito, however you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
And he said one of the big issues is he was like, we're doing our story, right? So if you come in here with this pitch where you want to like directly adapt characters from comic books into the movies, it's immediately going to get shot down. And that's a problem, right? That is a huge problem. I mean, you and I think most comic book fans would agree, we don't necessarily want to see one-to-one adaptations of stories that we've already seen because we know exactly how those stories play out.
Yep.
You know, I mean, is it cool to see that kind of stuff? Sure. But like, you know, we know exactly how those stories are going to end. So borrowing elements from other stories and incorporating them in, that makes things fun. That makes things enjoyable. But I get why they got rid of the Marvel Creative Committee, right? Because the MCC just kind of got a little big for its britches and it sort of had too much power. But that could have been easily solved by just putting Kevin Feige over the Marvel Creative Committee
100%.
as opposed to next to the Marvel Creative Committee, right? And at that point, they answer to him.
Yep.
And then he has the ability to shoot down or approve, you know, various ideas, which I'm sure is probably an idea where they're like, you know, we should have done that. You know, I'm sure Feige, if anybody, is probably thinking about that.
Yeah.
But I think that moving the MCU in the direction that it is now, 100% they can't get out of their own way because now Marvel Studios is what Fox was in the early 2000s.
Yep.
It's what Sony was and still is, right? Just suits in a room, making movies about comic book characters and ignoring the original source material. And I think it's important to be able to incorporate those elements in because if they had, all of this would have been a lot simpler. Or if Kevin Feige just kind of brought back the Marvel Creative Committee and if he's like, look, you know, I don't want to bring in, you know, Bendis and Quesada because honestly, they just kind of got carried away with it all. Like, we'll go with other people. That's fine.
Yeah.
You know, but what you need are people who can sit down with huge amounts of comic book knowledge and not just comic book knowledge, right? I mean, I have that. People who have a desire or a wherewithal to tell comic book stories.
Yeah.
Like, I have no desire to or wherewithal to, I mean, I don't want to tell comic book stories. And honestly, I don't even know if I'd be that great at doing it. But being able to tell comic book stories while at the same time having that knowledge about comic books, it translates to comic book movies. Because what the Marvel Cinematic Universe is doing is they're taking the concept of comic book stories and they're putting it in movie form. And when I say the concept, I mean long form storytelling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, here's an overarching story of Doctor Doom taking over Earth. And here's how Spider-Man fits into it. And here's how the Fantastic Four fit into it. And here's how Captain America and Red Hulk and all these guys fit into it. And by dumping those folks or getting rid of those folks, 100%, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is in this place where they just seemingly, you know, those guys just can't get out of their own way.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's pride. I don't know if they're just self-assured that they're right. But the proof is in the pudding. You know, even if Fantastic Four was a fun movie, and even if that movie not breaking $1 billion, which I think it should have been able to break $1 billion, if this movie was made 10 years ago, it would have broken $1 billion.
Yeah.
I think as a result of the fact of people like my sister who were just sort of like, they haven't really released the best product. So I don't know if I'm going to go out and spend extra money to watch a movie that's going to be on a streaming service that I'm already paying for in like 3 months, right? So I'll just wait and watch it there.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you, it's going to explode on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
It's going to be the most popular movie on Disney Plus for like weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think that in a lot of ways, getting rid of something like that and moving away from let's incorporate comic book source material into our storytelling is kind of what leads to where you are right now.
Yeah.
Which is just this immense feeling of disorganization, this immense feeling of no real cohesive plot threads, this immense feeling where there is no I don't know, sense of urgency, right?
Yeah.
There is no direction that anything is going in. And it's not difficult to do with someone like Doctor Doom. It's not hard, right? I mean, Doctor Doom is a dick, and he's always looking to just attain huge levels of power.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you really wanted to, if you want to make Doctor Doom's motivation just incredibly simple, a king came to Doctor Doom's universe. Doctor Doom was smart enough that he defeated that king.
Yeah.
Then he reverse engineered that king's technology. Then he learned how to access the multiverse. And because he's just an extreme narcissist that's always going for extreme levels of power, he's like, you know what? I can probably destroy all the kings.
Yep.
And so I'm going to do that. Right? I'm going to build an army of Doombots. We're going to invade the King Dynasty. We're going to kill them all. And then now I'm going to try to take over the multiverse. Cool, man.
Yeah.
Simple enough. Like you can do it like that, right? You can do it in the blink of an eye. Doctor Doom's not complicated. But when you have screenwriters and you have producers and you have people who just don't know anything about Doctor Doom in the comics, it's just a dude in a mask, right? Like it's Otto, whatever his name is, says I'm annoying, not gonna lie. Cool. I'm gonna yap some more, bro, just to piss you off. So yeah.
I didn't even see that.
Yeah, I don't know. But the funny thing, like I'm keeping an eye on the chat as I talk. Like it's not hard to make Doctor Doom an interesting and compelling villain,
right,
while giving him a pretty simplistic plot.
Well,
right, and audiences don't need like the full-on understanding of Doom. They
totally
just need to know that he's a bad guy.
But I would say to put it all together, like it's not hard if you're not afraid to just do comic books. Ultimately, like that's kind of what we're saying, right? It's like it's not hard unless there's some weird reason that you wouldn't want to just take all of the most obvious shit from comics and just adapt it, right? And look, like it's tough because like all of these conversations about Marvel and everything is really tough because they actually did the thing, right? So like they did what nobody else was able to do, and they built the thing up and it was incredible and it was fucking dope. And so it's like hard to say like, well, Luis D'Esposito was obviously involved in that. He's involved in this. So it's hard for me to just say like, oh, he's the problem, right? But maybe there's something else. Like maybe the reason Bo had that experience is not because like Luis has actually always been like that. Maybe something else happened. You know, we had this theory. We talked about it a bit in the community. It was like in the 2020, 2021 time period. And there were some big stories about like the Schulster estate was like winning new lawsuits to get even more compensation and shit. And Jack Kirby's estate was winning lawsuits to get more credit and more money and shit, right? Bill Finger, Bob Kane. A lot of these lawsuits were, I forget what the name is for it, but like there were new updates to them, right? And we had speculated, like, I wonder if Disney is seeing these lawsuits and then they're trying to actually tangibly stop just directly adapting comic books so that there's no straight line to the royalties, right? So like if you just strictly adapt Hickman shit, he has a very good case to say that he deserves a lot more than just credit for written by kind of shit, right? So I don't know, maybe something actually tangibly happened, but either way you slice it, like there's no way around it. They are getting in their own way right now. And I think a lot of the shit they built up here, man, like it just like it got sloppy. They had to keep fixing it. The problem was it looked so obviously like they were just doing shit to fix it and not like they were actually doing story. and now it's like completely caught up to them to the point that Doomsday has got me nervous. Like, I don't know how you feel about this, but Doomsday has me nervous, not just because of the movie, but because of how the fans are acting towards it. I feel like Marvel could not conceive of in a million fucking years that they would spend Robert Downey Jr. money, get him back, make him Doctor Doom, and that the whole world might be like, nah, I'll wait for streaming. But more and more, I'm thinking that is actually possible.
Well, yeah. But again, I think it's because there's just nothing to really be excited for.
Yeah.
Because again, like none of us really know because we're not in those rooms. But what's happening gives all the trappings of them just kind of flying by the seat of their pants, right? And yeah, just flying by the seat of their pants, and they don't really know. And there's certainly some influence there, right? You know, Disney Investor Day 2020, Disney made Marvel announce the Fantastic Four, even though they didn't have anything. So now the expectation from the audience is that the Fantastic Four movie is coming.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, well, we have to make a Fantastic Four film or something like that, and it's got to tie into what they're doing. But again, that's why I say, like, when you create this parliament that Feige seemingly has, that doesn't really have much in the way of people who are knowledgeable about comic book source material, and they're not really knowledgeable about comic book storytelling, then you just end up in this situation where it's like, well, we're just going to make movies that have comic book characters, and you're going to run into all kinds of issues. Because those who are not familiar with comic book storytelling do not really know how to tell long-form stories, like what the Marvel Cinematic Universe is doing over the first 10 years, where it all ties together in the end, and it all has a point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's because what the Marvel Cinematic Universe is doing has never been seen before. It was never done before.
Right.
So you can't bring in somebody who was a screenwriter for like one of the Indiana Jones films. You can't bring in somebody who helped to plan movies like, you know, maybe Harry Potter, you could kind of do that, you know, but somebody who like planned these one-off films, you know, or something like that, because they're great at making that movie, but they're not great at planning for like 10, 15 years down the line.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the Marvel Cinematic Universe is falling short. So I think that's why for most everybody who looks around right now, there's one gigantic question that's lingering on everybody's mind, which is, what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah,
you know?
sure.
And not only that, right? I mean, even looking at the first 10 years, right? Like, I mean, sure, like there is a point to be made where, God, who was it? Somebody just said it a second ago and I lost it, but somebody made the point where they said like, a lot of what happened in the first 10 years was kind of luck.
Yeah, a little bit.
You know, there was a little bit of luck. And I guess when you really look over the first 10 years, I mean, how much was there really in terms of like, this is all going in the direction of Infinity War? Well, there was the marketing side, right? It was Thanos is coming. Okay, cool. So Thanos means Infinity Gauntlet. And it was you and me, and it was, you know, New Rockstar, you know, Eric Voss and New Rockstars, and it was Charlie over at Emergency Awesome, people who were just like making these videos. We're like, this is what it's all going towards, you know? And so, if for no other reason than that, you know, Marvel could just kind of ride that wave on some level and say, okay, well then, I mean, this is what everybody, let's do this and let's do that, you know, and those little elements all came to play. But Thanos was synonymous with a thing. You know, Thanos' most notable moment in the history of Marvel Comics was getting the Infinity Gauntlet. Yeah. It's the one thing everybody knows him for. There's the Astral Regulator, there's the Cosmic Cube, there's the Heart of the Universe, right? He turned Mistress Death into an Infinity Stone recently.
There's a chopper.
But yeah, like, but the reality here is that Doctor Doom's not really known for any one particular moment, which means it becomes even doubly more important to make sure that if you're going to incorporate his character into a movie or into a franchise, and it's going towards a particular thing, you have to make that very, very clear to people. And especially now, given how short of a timeline they have to establish him like that. Right?
Yeah.
Not in a post-credit scene where he's holding his mask and Franklin's touching his face. No, you immediately have to establish what his motivation is, what he's doing, what his motivation is, what he's doing, and why he is the way he is. Otherwise, people are just kind of like, what's the point? Because it's not like we have another 5 years before Doomsday and Secret Wars comes out.
Yep.
It comes out next year.
Yeah.
And Spider-Man is the only movie in between.
Yep.
Right? So
yeah,
like, you know, it's wild to me that they're doing that. Having said that, I mean, I you know,
it could still work.
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah,
That's the
it could
thing,
work. I mean,
right?
you know,
Like at the end of the day,
it could work. But
well, because I've been thinking about this too, right? Because like, look, when I first heard this shit yesterday, it had me real down. I even told the person, I was like, this shit's gonna turn me into the Joker, right? Like, because I was cooking all these theories, brother. I had an 8-page script about Hydra Cap. You know what I mean? And then I get told this shit yesterday. I throw the whole script out, and I'm just sitting there. You know, I think like my wife like came back from like doing groceries or something. She's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "No, like not really, dude." And I'm just sitting there, and I'm like I'm like in shock. But here's the thing: the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know what? Ultimately, what it means is, it kind of is what everybody else was saying it was. There was a part of me that thought maybe, despite everything, they figured out a way to like really go for it, make it really cool, and it would be meaningful, and it wouldn't just be like a rush to the finish line, you know? However, it seems like it is just kind of the rush to the finish line. At the end of the day, I think it's still going to be a really fun movie, and I think Secret Wars is going to be cool. There's a lot of hope for Secret Wars, but that's because they can just wipe their hands of everything and just cook, you know, unabated, right? So that could be really cool. I think the thing that it is like, look, maybe we just have to accept that Marvel fucking cooked their shit. This is what it is. We got to rush to the finish line. Maybe there'll be some cool shit. Spider-Man 4 looks incredible. Doomsday will probably still be super fun. Maybe Battleworld's cool. And then maybe we just got to hope that, like, whatever the reboot is or the reset or whatever, that it's just much, much better. You know? Like, that is technically an option.
yeah, well, that's why I say. I mean, but it depends on how it's done. Because if they rush to the finish line in kind of a half-assed jog, or it just feels lazy and sloppy, no one's going to be excited, or not nearly as many people are going to be excited for what comes next.
I
because
agree. Yeah.
The last thing they saw was Marvel kind of, and that's why I say these kind of things are important, right? Because I mean, as you know, like I don't like just griping about things. I like offering solutions. So like,
Sure.
What would have been a way for Marvel Studios to, and I guess hindsight is 2020, right? But like, what would have been a way for Marvel Studios to create a sense of urgency and to, at the same time, present Doctor Doom as somebody who was exceedingly dangerous.
Yeah.
And was a threat to all of existence? Well, number one, don't show him. Right? Reference him, because that creates an air of mystery. It creates an air of like, okay, well, then what the hell is he doing? Right? A great post-credit scene for Fantastic Four would have had nothing to do with the Fantastic Four. You just jump to the TSA, and it's pandemonium and chaos. Why?
Sure.
The multiverse is collapsing.
Yeah.
And the multiverse is collapsing because unchecked incursions are happening.
Yeah.
Right? And they literally just established, like, incursions are not a slow thing. Right? It's not one of these things where, like, an incursion happens here, and then 5 years later, an incursion happens there. No. It's just all these universes colliding into each other, right? Like pool balls at the first hit. And like all this panic and all this chaos, right? And while it doesn't look that way, like you get the feeling of what it would be like if you just picked up with a ship where everything on the ship is failing, right? There's smoke coming out of holes and things like that. Lights are blinking, sirens are blaring. The staff of the ship are like running around like chickens with their heads cut off. You know, you get that feeling, even if it doesn't necessarily miss that way, or it doesn't look that way. And it's like what's causing this, right? Kind of like what you saw at the end of Loki season 1, when the multiverse bounced back.
Yep.
And it's like, well, what the hell's going on, right? And that's where you just like you pick up with like B15, you know, and she was like, it's him, right? Like Doom's finally made his move, and then you just cut to black, and then and while it leaves more questions than it answers, certainly right off the bat. Right, like it immediately establishes Doctor Doom is wiping out the multiverse, right? And maybe you can even just say, like in that post-credit scene, like he's killed the Kangs and Doom is making his move. Like right there, it's just like, okay, cool. So he wiped out the Kang Dynasty, he's making his move. The Kang Dynasty isn't a thing anymore, and no one's really going to care if you don't show how he wiped out the Kang Dynasty. It's enough to know that he did.
Sure.
And then in turn, you have the imminent threat of the multiverse collapsing, right? And so the question then becomes like, how do you open up Doomsday? How do you open up Avengers Endgame, right? With, you know, and a great way to open up Avengers Doomsday is, you know, I guess you could have that Thunderbolts post-credit scene and that opens up however it opens up. But like within the first 15 minutes of the movie, an incursion happens, right? And it's just like, we have to get the hell out of here, right? I mean, we can't stay here, right? Like, you know, there's nothing we can do here, whatever that case happens to be, you know, but I think that creating that sense of urgency, creating that opening scene in the movie where shit's just popping off,
Yeah.
just isn't necessarily there.
No, I think you're
and
absolutely
again,
right. Like tension is so important, right? And even the tension of trying to, because you see Thanos, and of course, yes, it's the snap, it's the stones, and that whole concept drives all the speculation, the theory crafting, but it's also driving the tension because you're like, oh, well, as we're seeing more of this happen, and especially after like Age of Ultron, when you get that vision, you're like, oh, this is headed to a place where he's going to be doing this. And it's going to be really bad for everybody. But you don't have that. I would argue you did not even have that with Kang. That's a part of the function of like time travel and the timey-wiminess of it all. But really, like Loki's a terrible, like the introduction of Kang and Loki is very cool, except for the fact that it kind of undermines like his actual story, and then you don't see him again until Quantumania, and it's like totally different. By making him like variant focused and having him be all over the place and killing the coolest variant of him in the very first time he appears, I just think they fucked it all up with him, and they didn't actually build for anything cool, and he's not really threatening, and you have no idea how he's actually going to affect like the rest of the universe. And that was with the guy they were doing stuff with. With Doom, he's like completely off to the side. They're not doing shit with him. But like, bro, there's so much they could have done. Speaking of comics, like the Rabam al, like the Great Destroyer, the Black Swans, like, bro, that's like the perfect way to do it. Multiverse of Madness, that's Stephen Strange that we meet. Who beat you? Flashback, Doctor Doom. You know what I mean? Or flashback, Black Swans. Like Quantum Mania, flashback to Doom. Like you, obviously, right? Like there's so much of a better way that they could have built that all up. But you're right. Like without the tension, it has felt like a big slog. And now it just feels like we're just going to kind of release, get out of it, and hopefully try again.
Yeah, I mean that's what makes it kind of that's what makes it kind of wonky, and that's what makes it so frustrating in a lot of ways, right? Because as comic book fans, we've seen what happens when stories get told where you get a kind of hand-wavy reason to end the story. Like, okay, how many of you guys here in the chat right now who are watching this, how many of you guys remember Secret Empire? Where Red Skull rewrote Captain America's history using a cosmic cube.
Yeah.
And Captain America was a Hydra agent the whole time.
Yep.
Like, how many of you guys remember that story?
I like that story, actually.
It's a phenomenal, like it's probably one of the greatest Captain America stories of all time. Do you guys remember the ending of that story?
Isn't it basically
right?
like he was a cosmic cube that became sentient?
No. So the ending of that story was that the real Captain America had been quote unquote locked away in this kind of paradise place or something along those lines.
Okay.
But the only way to fix it was to find a new cosmic cube in order to undo it. And so in a tie-in comic, this weird mutant guy, I can't remember what his name was, and I think he's just one of those plot characters. He vomits up a cosmic cube. He has the ability to like vomit up whatever you need, I think, or whatever it is. He vomits up a cosmic cube. And they just use that to end everything. They bring Captain America back into the real world. He fights Steve-O and the story ends. It was the laziest ending ever. Yeah. Now, as I understand it, Marvel did that ending because public reaction to Captain America as a Hydra agent was so poorly received, which is actually kind of nuts because people who read comics and loved Captain America, they loved it.
Yeah.
But they wanted to do like a whole Dark Reign thing, right? Where like for a few years, it was going to be like the Marvel Universe was going to be a world under the control of Captain America. And people, there was just a negative reception to it. So they just hand-wavily ended it super fast.
Gotcha.
But it sucked because it was a phenomenal story. It was awesome, right? Like Nick Spencer, I think he's done any number of interviews talking about it. But we've seen what happens when that happens.
Yeah.
When you kind of get lazy storytelling. And that's why I say, like, having people in on the creative side who come from comic book land is incredibly important for this kind of thing because they tell you about stories like that. Don't do this because if you do, this is how people are going to receive it. People have received this like in these various eras. That's how people received it, right? The second version of the Clone Saga in the late 1990s. Right, that was a perfect example. A story that could have been 12 issues long and was just kind of spanned out for 3 years when it didn't need to be.
Sure.
Right, they can help you avoid those pitfalls.
Yeah.
And, that doesn't necessarily seem to be happening here, So again, it's that's why I say, I think they're just a lot of these things, like, what are incursions? What causes incursions?
Yeah.
Right? How do incursions work? I think a lot of these plot threads, unless it is specific to the plot of Avengers Doomsday, it's largely just going to be ignored. Right?
I agree.
Somehow or another, Monica Rambeau is going to end up in the main Marvel universe, right?
Yep.
End up back home, and like that's going to be it. Either that, Josh, or Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars is going to have to wrap up all these plot threads.
Yeah.
All of these plot threads. And that's going to be, that it's going to create a couple of movies that are so disjointed and so disconnected.
Yep.
That none of it makes any sense whatsoever. It would feel like doing too much at one time. It would be like if Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Secret Wars had to answer why Loki attacked the city of New York and who it was that told Loki to attack the city of New York, and revealing the person who told Loki to attack the city of New York, and then establishing that person's motivation for why they wanted to attack the city of New York, establishing what the Infinity Gauntlet is, what the Infinity Gauntlet is capable of, showing us what the Infinity Gauntlet can do, which half of that they did in the film, as well as introducing why explaining why the Guardians of the Galaxy formed, and explaining why the Avengers form in the first place.
Yeah.
And like all these plot threads, right? And maybe somewhere along the way, Tony Stark is lost in space. And so explain, or I guess maybe with Thor, right, being on Asgard and the whole Ragnarok thing. Well, now we got to explain that whole Ragnarok thing. What's Ragnarok? And bring in all these plot threads, because at the end of this, if they do all that in this movie, they're going to have to explain how the mutant gene works. Because remember, we still don't have an answer to that question.
Yeah.
Right. Which would have to be done at some point, with the X-Men, and why it is that America Chavez is a mutant and where it comes from, like how people are mutants in the main Marvel Cinematic Universe. They're going to have to explain and do a whole lot with the idea of the Eternals and the Celestials, right? And what the Celestials are doing right now in the midst of all of this, how they tie into it. They're going to have to expect what it was that happened with Kang, the Kang Dynasty, if they ever explain that at all. How Loki ties into it. What's going on with the Guardians of the Galaxy? What does a team look like? They're going to have to explain that. They're going to have to do all these things.
As you're saying all of this, I now understand why they were like, well, we can't do that, so let's just make it Steve Rogers broke the multiverse because he wanted to get some fucking
They would
cheeks.
have to run through.
Oh my
They'd have
God.
to run through all, like, there's so much they would have to do, and so many plot threads that they would have to wrap up. And that's the thing, because I think that oftentimes when it comes to like these leaks that come out, whether they're true or false, people hyperfixate. Right?
Yeah.
So, well, according to the leaks right now, it's all supposed to be around Steve Rogers, and everything else gets forgotten.
That's true. Yeah.
Right? But then once you actually zoom out, you're just kind of like, well, I mean, there's still Clea and Doctor Strange who are in the Dark Dimension dealing with the incursion that's going on there, right? And there's the Watcher. What's going on with the Watcher? Right? Peggy Carter and the Watcher, like this, their team, right? So like they still have those kind of multiversal Avengers, if you want to call it that. I mean, there's so many things. And that's the result of what happens when you go into a whole scenario like this. You have no plan, you throw stuff at the wall to see what sticks. And it's just like it's nuts. And it's bonkers, and it creates huge amounts of disorganization. Yeah. And so like it's why having comic creatives or people who are knowledgeable about comics on the ground level helping you build your universe is important, because then in turn they can say, so what's all this going to?
Right. Yeah.
Right? Yep. Like what's the point of doing what if? Like, I mean, because it's one thing to just say, what if in this universe shit pops off? Thanks for watching, guys. Peace. And like, that's it.
Yeah.
It's another to say, here's a what if universe. And here's a cohesive story throughout the entirety of the what if universe, which will likely need to come back in some form or fashion. Yeah. Because it's a hard sell to convince the average person of the MCU that we're never going to see the Watcher again, or we're never going to see him throughout all of this. Yeah. The entirety of the multiverse is collapsing, and you got Avengers, Doomsday, and Secret Wars, and we're never going to see the Watcher. Right? It doesn't make any sense. That none of that, any of that stuff happens. Whereas if you have those kind of people on the ground level, it's like, well, why are we introducing the Watcher and what if outside of being a narrator? Yeah. What's the point?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, we'll see. There's probably other stuff here that we're missing, and maybe it'll be cool when we see it. We'll be like, okay, the performances carried it. It was still really crazy. It was still really fun. The issue is, because they did something that was so incredible in Infinity War and Endgame and the build up to Thanos, which again, yes, it was a lot of luck, but at the end of the day, they did it. You know, they fucking did it. We're always going to compare it to that. And it's just so clearly not that. And I think the issue with these new leaks is that they sort of confirm that it's not that. And they just kind of confirm, like, hey, it is what it is. You know, we're making do. We're just moving shit along. We're trying to go off hype. And then we're going to draw some stuff together. And then we're going to give you a cool Secret Wars. And the issue is it feels like watching a car crash in slow motion, because you know why they're doing it, and they're doing it because everything is fucked. And yet you can't help but be like, but if you could just do something really crazy, maybe you could actually make it really good. And it's just the signals you're getting are like, that's not possible. Instead, we're just going to do the best we can with the lackluster shit that we have left over from all this stuff. And it's like, I'm sorry, that's not great. Like that's not how I wanted to feel, you know? Like, yes, was it a pipe dream to think out of all this shit they somehow found something that would be as equally cool and interesting as good as Infinity War and Endgame? Of course. But I think having that dream or having that idea would still have been so much more hopeful than like kind of where we're at right now. And it just kind of feels like, okay, we'll deal with whatever this is, and you know, we'll keep our expectations low, and then hopefully Secret Wars is dope. It's like, that's tough, man. Like, I don't know how that's gonna result as far as box office. Like, that could really hurt it. And then the fear there is, well, what if that means that then Secret Wars underperforms? Because ultimately Doomsday is supposed to act like a preview or a trailer for Secret Wars. Like, you should watch Doomsday, and then you need to know what's going on with Secret Wars. I just don't see how, with the current plot we have, we get to that point. It's a little bit scary, you know?
Yeah. Well, again, you know, that's the idea of creatives. Because if it were up to me and it was like, okay, Rob, well, I mean, we've got so many plot threads involving Secret Invasion, all that kind of stuff. How do we wrap it all up? Just have Doctor Doom or whoever show up in the universe, and like they just obliterate the entire reality. Or an incursion shows up, and the whole universe gets obliterated in one fell swoop. And the best the TVA or the Fantastic Four can do is save who they can, and that's it. They only save a handful of people, right? Because I mean, one of the things to keep in mind is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, there's not that many superheroes.
Yeah, true.
Right. So they basically save the Avengers and the Thunderbolts, and that's it. That's all they can save, because those are the only real active superheroes there. Everything else gets wiped out. So your Celestials are gone. The entire aftermath, the Secret Invasion is gone. Right. All that stuff gets wiped out in one fell swoop. Done. Cool. All that stuff is nixed. Now all we have to do is just worry about a few other things here and there. Right. Like, do we involve the Spider-Verse? If we don't, cool. That's a self-solving problem. Yeah. And then at that point, it just shifts to the TVA. And so it just becomes so much simpler. Right, if you do something like that. Now, whether or not they're considering that, I don't know.
Right.
You know, but given everything that's going on, it's leading me to believe they're not necessarily going to. Right. They're going to try to wrap up a whole bunch of stuff. But I mean, that's the great thing about reboots, right? I mean, because if you go back and you read like DC Comics, for example, and you read the stories that were going on with Superman, Batman, all those guys leading up to Crisis on Infinite Earths. Right, they just stop in the middle of their stories, and then they're just like literally, what's his name shows up. I can't remember the guy with the who was I think dressed in green. He had blonde hair, but the guy who was like recruiting people essentially, he just like shows up to them, and it's just like, you got to come with me, right? Because the multiverse is in danger, and they just run off with them, like literally just full stop in the middle of a battle and just take off, right? And like that's it. That's the great thing about multiverses, it just clean slates things.
Yeah,
and I think that it maybe on some level, Marvel's aware of that, right? They're aware of that. Pariah, that's what it is. Thank you, guys. I'm sure on some level, Marvel is aware of that. That when they look around, they see that there's not a lot of fan reception to Secret Invasion. It's, I think, the lowest rated.
It was
the lowest rated store. Yeah, the lowest rated TV show from Marvel. That what if it's kind of cool, but nobody really cares about it, you know? And so it's just kind of like, all right, cool. Let's just get rid of it.
Yeah.
And I don't think there are very many people, like if Doomsday ends with the main Marvel universe wiped out, I don't think there are going to be a lot of people out there who are just going to be like, but we need to know what happened with the Celestials.
Yeah,
and we need to know what was going on with Secret Invasion. We need all these plot threads wrapped up. No. I think most people are just going to be like, thank God.
Dude,
right? Like,
isn't that so sad? And you know what else is like?
Yeah.
I don't know that Kevin even realizes this because he said the other day, like the word reboot is a scary word. And I'm just like, bro, like, no, it is not. Like the words you just said are scary because it's like, are you
Yeah.
really so fucking
Yeah, 100%.
like you're so married to this shit? You're so like living in the past of the accomplishments that this thing had that you're just gonna like find a way to keep this thing going? Like, no, dude, like it might be time. It might be time to just let it all go away and reset it completely. I almost feel like that I mean, we'll see, right? We'll see how Doomsday goes. We'll see how Secret Wars goes. But dude, I hope they're at least open to like full on reboot because you look at what's going on with DCU right now, dude. It's crazy because like I like Superman a lot, right? And there's a lot of mystery there. There's a lot of cool stuff that opens the door for like future DC stuff. But like, bro, people are going so easy on that movie, and they're going so easy on this universe. Because we don't know what it
you
is.
said on the Fantastic Four?
I'm sorry,
Or on
what?
the Superman universe?
Superman.
You said the Superman universe?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Meaning like there's so much we don't know about it. There's so many possibilities in the future that like people are excited to think about the movie, to think about where it goes. And in that sense, they're not necessarily dinging the movie like as one example, right? So Superman a little bit weaker in the film compared to maybe Man of Steel or like some other versions of Superman, right? But it all makes sense because it's the start of the universe. He's been Superman for like what, 3 years? So he's obviously going to get not only stronger, but he's going to get more adept. He's going to learn more about the world. He's going to be less naive. So you can look at Superman through this lens with all this possibility. Whereas when you look at Fantastic Four, you look at Marvel, you have all this context. You know all of what's possible, what's not. You have this total model, and therefore certain elements, certain things that you might not like about the characters or whatever, they're like etched in stone a little bit more. I feel like Marvel should probably consider just completely rebooting because there will be some kind of grace given back to them by the fans that I don't think they're going to get if they just keep trying to change this, adjust this, and keep it going. You know?
That's fair. And somebody made a good point where they were talking about how the reboot that DC did caused problems for Black Adam and Flash and there was a third movie I think they brought up. Well, number one, Black Adam, that one had problems because, I mean, that one, it did pretty well, but it had problems because people were kind of getting burned out on The Rock. Stories were coming out about the kind of things that The Rock was doing.
Right.
And word of mouth got around that the movie was kind of ass. And so people were like, all right, well, then they're not necessarily going to go see it. The Flash was damaged by the reboot. Aquaman 2. Yeah, Aquaman 2 and The Flash were damaged by the reboot because James Gunn literally came out before the movies came out and said, we're going to reboot. So you basically don't need to worry about Flash or Aquaman because they're not going to go on into the future of what we're doing. So he took away any reason for anyone to go and see those movies.
Yeah.
When you combine that with the fact that, you know, Aquaman was kind of in development hell and everything happening with Ezra Miller at the time The Flash came out, no one really had a reason to go and see the movie. Like it took away any reason to go and see the films.
Yeah.
So sure, if Kevin Feige comes out and is like, yeah, we're going to reboot the Marvel Cinematic Universe and basically says that what's happening in Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars aren't really going to have anything to do with the reboot, well then yeah, no one's going to go see those.
Sure.
Right.
Fair.
But if he's just like, we're going to reboot and the only way to know about how the reboot happens is to watch Doomsday and Secret Wars, sure, people are going to see that. And I get where he's coming from about the idea that reboots are scary because there's no guarantee they're going to be successful. But it all depends on how you do the reboots and it all depends on how you handle the characters that come after, right? Like DC rebooted for the first time ever with Crisis on Infinite Earths back in like the mid 1980s, 1986, 1987. Right. And then following that, Batman gets Batman, The Dark Knight Returns from Frank Miller. It skyrockets the popularity of his character. Frank Miller follows up with Batman Year One. Batman Year One does just as well. Then you go into Legends of the Dark Knight, which started out great, but then ultimately turned to trash. But then like by the mid 1970s, Julius Schwartz had done that whole story with Superman where he was immune to kryptonite and he lost half his powers. They ultimately ended up setting things back to rights. But by 1992, they kill him. And so the sales, like Max Landis had a really good video on that, where he's like, ever since the death of Superman, the sales of his comics never recovered.
Right.
And honestly, they really didn't until you got to like, Superman Rebirth and Action Comics Rebirth, because, what is it? Frank Thierry. No, was it Tomasi? I always get the two of them mixed up.
I think it was Tomasi.
Tomasi, yeah, he did it so well, and Dan Jurgens did it so well. So it was exceedingly popular. But how you handle things, it depends, right? Superman, arguably the most popular character in comic books, was handled incredibly poorly post-crisis. And unlike Batman, who was handled incredibly well post-crisis.
Sure, yeah.
So it really depends on how you handle the characters and how the stories were written. And so if Kevin Feige says, well, reboots are a scary word, and I don't really know how I feel about doing reboots, well, then do one well.
Yeah, totally.
And when the characters come after, do them well. And then you'd be amazed how responsive people would be to the characters that are done. I mean, are people forever going to hold on to Tony Stark? RDJ as Tony Stark? Yes. Whoever it is that you cast as the new Iron Man following this reboot to be the new Tony Stark, are they going to compare them to Robert Downey Jr.? 100%.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean they can't like them just as much.
Yep.
I mean, there are people who, to this day, will say that Michael Keaton's Batman is the definitive Batman, despite the fact that he couldn't turn his head. Right? There are people who will say, like, he is the Batman, right, in word and deed. But I know people who will tell you for a fact that George Clooney was the best Batman, or that Val Kilmer was the best Batman, or that Robert Pattinson was the best Batman. Right? It all kind of depends. Right, even within the world of comic books, people who grew up reading Barry Allen swear by far and wide that he's the greatest Flash ever, and they were pissed off to no end when DC killed him in Crisis on Infinite Earths, and they were happy as a clown when Jeff Johns brought him back, or I guess Grant Morrison brought him back in Final Crisis, and Jeff Johns kept it going. And there were fans who grew up with Wally West and swore he was the greatest Flash ever, and they were pissed off when he went away in the New 52. So you can love a new version of a character as much as you love the old version of the character if you give it a chance. But it is inherent on Kevin Feige and them to write those characters in a way that give people a reason to care. Yeah. And that's why I think on some levels, I don't know if they're high on their own supply or what, but I think in some ways, our Marvel Cinematic Universe kind of looks made by us. No, not really.
Yeah.
Right? Like, not really. Right? Just because you make it doesn't mean people are going to like it. I mean, I'm a YouTube content creator. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Like, I literally made a video yesterday about Punisher killing the Marvel Universe. People didn't give a shit. Like that video will be lucky to break 70,000 views at the end of its run.
Yeah.
However, in 6 months. Like, just because it's there doesn't mean people are going to like it, and just because you made it doesn't mean people are going to care. So I get where he's talking about that reboots are kind of scary, but do it well if that's how you feel.
It potentially, to me, it sort of speaks to the psychology, right? Because the psychology there is like, he just can't conceive of everything that they have built and all of that just going away. And that he's so hyper fixated on the value that has provided, and it did for a long, long time. Like, there's no question about it. But I think it also shows that there's this inability to see that just might not be the move anymore. That that might have just been, for its time and place, the best thing. And it might be time to let that go. The other thing that I find kind of interesting about this, and it goes into the DC stuff too. We actually have right now in comics 2 Elseworlds, right? You have the Ultimates, and then you have the all in universe, or Absolute, right? And they're both killing it. Right? Like, they have revitalized, especially for DC. It feels like the Absolute line is crushing it. It's revitalized that base. And so to take it full circle, right? What have we've been talking about this whole time? They won't just do what the comics do, right? Well, we literally have right now the perfect fucking example of why, proven in the comics, they should probably be willing to do something really drastic and different and give somebody a completely fresh new look. That's what's literally working. So why don't why? And it frustrates me a little bit, Rob, because look, I love Superman. I'm excited about a lot of what Gunn is doing, but there is a part of me That's like, are we really just going to go through like all the best early Superman shit for the next 3 to 5 years? Like, I want something completely different. I would like to have my mind blown. I'm looking for like a absolute, or I'm looking for a crisis. I'm looking for something crazy. Like, what do you think of that?
Well, to kind of make a final point about Marvel for a quick second, something I want to point out here, guys. Just because they reboot does not mean it's a hard reboot.
Right.
If you're not really familiar with comics and you're just coming from movies, there's two kinds of reboots in comic books. There is hard reboots and soft reboots. A hard reboot is Crisis on Infinite Earths. Oh, I'm sorry, is New 52, really. That was Crisis wasn't really a hard reboot. That was more of a soft reboot. But
Sure.
New 52 is where they're just like, you never had to have read comics before. Start here, Batman #1, go forward from there. A soft reboot would be like Crisis on Infinite Earths. So in the Marvel Cinematic Universe case, it would be like if, let's say, all the superheroes they want to keep, right? So whatever members of the X-Men they want to keep, and whatever Avengers they want to keep, superheroes from the Marvel Universe, and they're in the void, right? They're just kind of fighting amongst each other in the void, or that's where they go to because all the other universes in the multiverse are destroyed. And so the heroes you see in the void are the ones that are going to continue on because somehow or another, due to another sacrifice from Loki or whatever it is, that we just get one universe now. And so all those superheroes leave the void and go into that new universe, right? Which includes, what's his name? Oh my God. James Rhodes as the new, maybe continue on as War Machine or maybe being the new Iron Man.
Yeah.
Right. Riri Williams and all the characters like we know and love in the MCU right now. Right, the Thunderbolts and the Avengers, basically. That's what you would get. So those stories would stay intact, and they might even reference it, right? Like you might even have like this instance, right, where you have Anthony Mackie who's talking to, I don't know, Clint Barton, and it's like, damn man, remember that time when like the multiverse died and we were all in the void, and then we survived, and now we're here in this universe, right? So you can keep all those histories intact, with a soft reboot. So you don't have to necessarily wipe everything out, pretend like the Marvel Cinematic Universe has never existed, and start from zero. And I think you're justified in feeling like that would leave a bad taste in your mouth because it probably would, truth to tell.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think a soft reboot would be the direction that they would go in, where they basically Crisis on Infinite Earths the multiverse. Having said that, as far as DC goes, I'm not really too concerned. I will say to your point about the Absolute Universe, I think the only reason that Absolute Universe works is because it's an alternate reality, right? So if they said, okay, like we're canceling the current Batman run, or it's going to end when Chip Zdarsky's done, and then we're going to start a new Batman run, and like Batman #1 was Absolute, I think it would actually have far less reception to it. I don't think people would be anywhere near as receptive to it as they are now. Because it's so far removed from the Batman they expect to see, who can just reach into one of his pouches and have whatever he needs at any particular point in time to fight whatever villain he happens to be fighting at any point in time.
Yeah.
Whereas the Absolute Universe works because the entire universe is crafted to look that way. So I don't necessarily know if that would scale to the main DC universe. Having said that, I don't necessarily know if what's happening in the Marvel Cinematic, the DC universe right now is inherently a bad thing because it is new and it is fresh.
That's true.
And I think it makes sense that a lot of people are going to give it a pass because not enough has happened for people to pass judgment on it and to say whether or not it's good or bad.
Yeah.
I think, Chip Zdarsky and Captain America, it's amazing. I think that what's happening right now is there are people who are responding in some ways negatively to Superman with some, with some valid criticism and some unvalid criticism. Superman saved a squirrel. That's ridiculous. Okay, cool. So you go sit in the corner and shut the hell up while the adults talk, right? Whereas somebody comes along and they say, look, I get this is a new Superman, but like, he should have it a little more together than the way that it was given to us. Okay, cool. Yeah. Then I kind of get that, right? I can kind of get that to a degree. People think of Superman, they want to think of like their granddad.
Fly up
Superman.
real high and slam down real hard. Not a great plan. You know what I mean? Like
not a great plan. Yeah. Like how is it that he didn't crack the Earth in two?
Right.
When he did it? How did the Earth survive that kind of impact? Which clearly goes to show that he's a less powerful Superman.
Correct.
That being said, I do kind of like the idea of Superman not really being less powerful, but being a little less experienced, because of what it means is that we get to grow with him.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So we get to watch him start out as this Superman and become the Superman that we hope he becomes one day, the Superman that we imagine in our heads, which is not an inherently bad thing. Yeah. I think the next 2 to 3 years will be very, very telling on what James Gunn's universe will look like, because as much as it's cool that all the TV shows and all the animated shorts and all the movies will cross over with each other, it can also become very disorganized very, very quickly and become very hard to follow. Because we're kind of seeing that to a degree with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Right. But I think that James Gunn also, I think that with the MCU being the kind of baseline for it, I think James Gunn, in looking at all of that, knows what pitfalls to avoid. Right. And I think he knows how to market the products in a way that give people a reason to want to go and see those. Right. You know, and you know, to sit down and watch those shows. But again, I mean, that goes into any number of issues, you know, like what's the future of streaming anyway? You know, like, you know, those kinds of questions.
No, I think that's fair.
But yeah, I mean, I guess the last thing I would say, you know, for the DC thing is, I mean, Superman makes me excited. You know, it makes me really interested to see, you know, what it looks like. But I love it.
yeah. No, I mean, I think, you know, you made a lot of good points. I would say that Superman is fresh, and it does kind of like give its new thing, but it's fresh because like DC has just been so whack. I think the more it like just represents like basic DC, I just have this fear of like so like for instance, when Superman, when I first saw it, man, I loved it so much. I went and watched a bunch of the animated shows and the movies, and just you know, I did that thing where I was like, oh man, I'm kind of vibing on DC, and I'm like watching all this shit, right? So I'm doing all that, but then it kind of gets to a point where I'm like, okay, yep. So I know this happens and this happens and this. And I go through all the sort of basic DC stories, which they did great. The animated things are great. They cover them in a lot of cool ways. But ultimately, I'm like sitting there thinking, if the next 5 years of DC are just doing versions of these great stories that we're seeing in these animated things, I just don't know how novel and cool and exciting that is for me. You know, and it feels a little bit similar to Marvel, where like Marvel's not even doing the comic book stuff, but I'm basically fatigued on the MCU version of stuff, where it's like they tend to do a lot of things. You know, they tend to have the same kind of you know, jokes, the same kind of plot structures, the same kind of like CGI villains, like all this kind of stuff, and I'm just fatigued of it. There's a part of me that's like, I love comics. Right. And I think one of the reasons that the Ultimates universe works for me, and one of the reasons that what I've read of the Absolute universe works, is because I'm able to like bring all the stuff I know from comics, but also understand that this is a new version that is unraveling before me. And I'm trying to see like, what are the similarities to what I know? How is this a different version? Marvel used to have that. Like when the MCU was first popping off, that's what it had. We were like, oh, you know, most of us knew about Bucky before we went to see the Winter Soldier, but we were interested in what the MCU version of this was going to look like. Does that make sense? And I just feel like, like, there's something lost right now with Marvel, and I feel like a little bit DC too. Like as much as I like Superman, I'm looking at Supergirl, and it's like, I mean, what do I expect? Woman of Tomorrow. Yeah, not really much else. Like, you know what I mean? I expect Woman of Tomorrow. Maybe they'll build up a little bit of stuff, but like, I'm not looking at Supergirl to be like, oh shit, like this is actually something I've never seen before. They cook something crazy different. No, it's generally going to be exactly what I think a Supergirl movie is going to be. And there's a part of me that's like, I don't know how much longer that's going to actually appeal to me, you know?
Well, I get what you're saying. It'll probably be Woman of Tomorrow. The only thing that I would want to make sure they do in that movie is they bring what's his name back from the Phantom Zone at the end and kill him after making him suffer for 300 years.
Oh yeah,
right. But
yeah.
But outside of that, I get what you're saying, and honestly, what I would say I think you're feeling though, and I think your audience might be feeling this too. I think it's some spillover from the Marvel Cinematic Universe into the perception of DC.
Sure.
Because I think, well, I don't necessarily know that superhero fatigue is there. I think it certainly exists. You'd have to be a fool to say that it doesn't. Well, I don't know how big of a part that plays. And while I don't think that people are against the idea of the multiverse, I think they're just against the way that it's been handled in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I would certainly say that there isn't really a lot of excitement for the MCU. And because the Marvel Cinematic Universe is just the big kid in the neighborhood.
Sure.
If it's hard to be excited about that, it's also kind of hard to be excited about the DC Cinematic Universe, because outside of some things like Creature Commandos, which I didn't watch, I'm not really interested in them, and Harley Quinn, which I watched a few episodes of and was like, this is not for me. Superman's the only thing that I'm really following. It's just kind of like, there really isn't enough there to just be like, yeah, I'm amped and I'm excited, for the DC universe. You watch the movie, you sit down, and you say, that was a pretty solid start.
Right.
And that's it. That's really all you have. But, I mean, just let yourself kind of run wild for a minute, right? Let yourself be imaginative, right? Like, I tweeted out a few weeks ago, maybe about a month ago, and you saw it, you responded to it. And I don't know how many people here saw it and responded to it, but I tweeted out and I was like, okay, so let's talk about the Lantern show for a second.
Yeah. And
I was like, so if we're talking about like building up to something, right? We know that Superman's not necessarily going to do it. Superman was just telling the story of Superman, right? And just laying the groundwork. It was James Gunn's love letter to everybody who watched the Zack Snyder films and was like, this is not what the DC Cinematic Universe is supposed to feel like.
Sure.
Right? That's all that movie was.
Yeah.
Right? It was just a giant marketing ploy, a giant billboard saying, here's what my universe
looks like. Yeah, it's a rebranding. It's like, Yeah. And so now, imagine Lanterns picks up, right? And imagine there is no Kyle Rayner at this point. All you have is Jon Stewart, Hal Jordan, and Alan Scott. Right, that Alan Scott was murdered on Earth. That it's like it's a murder mystery thing, right? Okay, cool. So the leaks are saying Alan Scott was killed. So let's roll with this. Let's say that Alan Scott was killed on Earth, right? And that Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart are the two Green Lanterns, and they were pulled away from the War of Light. Yeah.
That's going on over there, right? Because the Guardians sent Jon Stewart on a mission, right? They're like, you need to go to Earth for this thing. And we don't necessarily know what it is, right? It kind of unfolds and we learn about it over the course of the show, right? What Jon Stewart was there for. And so once they find what killed Jon Stewart, then in turn, they kind of go on finishing this mission, so to speak, that Alan Scott was on, right? And that's where you end up finding out that with the War of Light happening, that Alan Scott was killed by a Black Lantern.
Yeah.
Right. And that what Alan Scott, I don't know why I keep wanting to say Jon Stewart, that what Alan Scott was investigating was basically the prophecy of Blackest Night. That's what he was sent to investigate by the Guardians of the Universe. And the War of Light, the prophecy of Blackest Night, it's coming true.
Yeah. Dude,
right. And so
sure.
now that's your big
We're off
build
to the
up.
races. Of course.
We're off to the races, right? Like
yeah.
That's your big event is the prophecy of Blackest Night. Now, comic book fans will say, well, you can't do prophecy of Blackest Night this soon. Why? Well, because prophecy of Blackest Night brought back all these dead superheroes turned into Black Lanterns.
True.
So?
Just say that they were dead. You know what I mean? Like Gunn's universe is lived in. Hal seems older.
It is lived in, yeah.
Yeah, so you could still have a bunch of dead ones. Like you could bring back Alan Scott. Literally, like show him in the show, do some flashbacks. You know what I mean? Like show him in the Justice Society. And then at the end of the show, he's risen. You know what I mean? That would be crazy.
Or you just don't even bring superheroes in.
True.
Or you might bring a couple superheroes in, right? But it's literally just this, like, I mean, the concept of Blackest Night is dark enough as it is, and it's dangerous enough as it is, without bringing in, all this other stuff. And to the people who would say, well, I mean, how are you going to explain the Red Lanterns and the Blue Lanterns, all that kind of stuff? Cool. So like Jon Stewart's the new recruit.
Yeah, he's got to learn.
And maybe he's new-ish, right? And so like he hasn't been there all that long. And so while they're on this mission, right, it's like, I mean, what's like Hal Jordan basically fills him in. Okay, so here's how the lanterns work. There's the Red Lanterns, Blue Lanterns, Sinestro Corps, yada, yada, yada. And just, even if there is no, War of Light that's going on out there or whatever it is, like the point is, it gets explained in a 10-minute segment in the show. You can do that. I can make a 10-minute video explaining it right now, and people would, understand what was going on. So
literally did that with the Infinity Stones. Like, he did that in his Guardians movie. It explained it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he explains it all. You can do it very, very easily.
Yeah.
So you can fill that in pretty easily. But the bigger point here is the prophecy of Blackest Night, as you know, and as your fans may not know, is like the whole prophecy of Blackest Night was like wiping out all life across the universe, and everybody in the universe would just become undead Black Lanterns and servants to Necron. Right now, I don't know about you, But I don't need to see dead superheroes coming back to life, being enslaved by Black Lantern rings to understand how bad of a thing that is.
Sure. Yep.
Right? I mean, just on its face.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty fucked, like, to be honest.
It's not great. Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds pretty bad, right? So cool. All right. So that's our main threat. That's our main thing that we're having to go to. And then it builds up a lot of interest and it builds up a lot of excitement, a lot of popularity, right? Well, there's White Lanterns. Well, I mean, how powerful are the White Lanterns? Damn, they're basically gods who can alter reality.
Yeah.
What if Superman becomes a White Lantern?
Oh, hell
what if Superman becomes a Red Lantern?
Oh,
right? I mean, like, there's all
yeah.
these little questions that you could ask and all these cool little things. Now, I'm not saying they're going to do that. It's just, that's where you can kind of let your imagination.
To be fair, and like what some of what you're pointing out here, or at least the way it's hitting me, is like, well, the truth is DC, because it never got like to that place. Think about Batman. How many times have we seen the fucking Waynes get shot? You know what I mean? Like, Batman just keeps like we cannot get out of that fucking alley. So like we never got to that point. So DC and Gunn have the benefit of all of this untapped shit that, like, because Marvel taps into a lot of stuff over 10 years because they kind of have to. Like, they do the material, they move on to the next one. DC just kept going back. So yeah, they have a lot of shit, and I think you're right. Like, if they could tap into some of these really cool big scale DC ideas, there would be a lot of interest. There would be a lot of it would be intriguing. And dude, War of Light, fucking Blackest Night, Brightest Day, hell yeah! To see that would get me excited. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe it's more of a Marvel thing. Maybe it's just like Marvel needs to kind of. Marvel might need a hard reboot more than DC does.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what makes things exciting. Is because if you bind yourself to comic book lore, especially because I mean this is the beginning of it all, right? Of the DC universe. So if you bind yourself exclusively to the DC lore, DC Comics lore, then it's very, very limiting, right? Yeah. Whereas what if we said, okay, so the 10-year plan of the DC Cinematic Universe is Blackest Night. So we're not going to see that for another 10 years. Cool. So what if like their version of the Avengers is Sinestro Corps War? But the Sinestro Corps War is Thal Sinestro gaining recruits from other people on Earth. For example, Scarecrow becomes a Yellow Lantern, right? Scarecrow maybe exists in the Batman mythos. Of course, they kind of have to iron out a lot of that stuff for Robert Pattinson's Batman. But, say, for example, like Scarecrow becomes a Yellow Lantern.
Yeah.
That would be wild. What would that look like? Yeah, it'd be kind of sick.
Could be real cool.
Yeah, the Sinestro Corps going to war against the Green Lanterns. Well, I mean, how does he build his ranks? That's where things get cool. And that's where you start breaking away from what happened in the comics. You build on the concept, but you also expand on it in a way that the comics didn't necessarily do. And things that we didn't realize would have been cool until later. Like Scarecrow becoming, a member of the Sinestro Corps. Like, how come they never did that before?
Yeah.
Like, damn. The whole Sinestro Corps story gets written, and Scarecrow never becomes a member of the Sinestro Corps. And it's not until you get to Sam Humphries' Green Lantern
for a little bit.
No, that happened in Sam Humphries' Green. It was either Sam Humphries or I think Robert Venditti's Green Lantern run. Oh, okay. But I'm pretty sure it was Sam Humphries' Green Lanterns, I think, or maybe it was a Superman story.
Yeah, because I think
it was a Sam Humphries story.
I just remember the Hero Clique. They did have him in a Hero Clique.
Yeah, no, he never becomes a member of the Sinestro Corps. It's not until much later on in DC that they do that. And it's like, damn, that would have made perfect sense.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Well, yeah, I guess technically he kind of didn't black it, but it wasn't nearly as in-depth as it was in the Green Lanterns comic.
Yeah.
But yeah, because this is headcanon, so I might be remembering this correctly, but I want to say it tied into the Superman story, I think, where it starts off with Scarecrow and then it goes into Superman being possessed by Parallax, but I'm not going to swear to that, right? I'd have to go back and read it, to make sure I remember. But yeah, I mean, the point that I'm making here is there's a lot of reason to be excited about the future of the DC Cinematic Universe. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, time will tell. We'll see. We'll see how Doomsday and Secret Wars goes. But at the moment, I'm a lot more excited about where the DC Cinematic Universe could go, as opposed to where the Marvel Cinematic Universe has been, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's crazy because I never would have thought this, but technically DC has a brighter future than Star Wars or Marvel right now. Like, that's wild, right? But I think it's true. And I think I think Disney just kind of cooked their shit a little bit, and They can get it back, but they might have to get a little drastic with the ideas. I think they need fresh blood, bro. I think they need fresh blood.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, and that was something that you tweeted out, where you were like, look, I mean, if the last few years in the Marvel Cinematic Universe has shown anything, it's that Feige's idea of his parliament just doesn't really work. Certainly not as well as he'd hoped it would.
It's aged out.
And granted, there are other factors at play, right? Disney demands and different things like that. But the reality here is that with the right kind of team, he would have been able to pivot effectively, right? And he wouldn't have been on the struggle bus. Things wouldn't be so disorganized. So I'm not against your idea of saying like, hey, maybe it's time for a bit of a switch up, at Marvel Studios. Whether that means Kevin Feige needs to be out, I don't necessarily know if I feel that way, because I think Kevin Feige is one of the few like comic book fans that and he's never been a writer or anything like that, but I think he's one of the few comic book fans that's actually that has control in Marvel Studios.
Oh yeah.
So I think if Kevin Feige was forced out, that would actually be a huge problem for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
So and this is like one of the issues I had with what Bo was trying to imply. It's like we know from various different material, Joanna's book, but also comments from Hugh Jackman, comments from Robert Downey Jr. He is not a suit. Feige is not a suit. He was always known as being more of a creative. And he happens to be a creative that has that power and rose through the ranks through unusual circumstances to become the guy. And it was always said by like all these people that like that's why it's so unique over there, is because he is not a suit, right? So it's just weird because like Bo's claiming all this stuff, but the reality is like, if anything, Feige was actually stretched so thin that when he was having these meetings with Bo, he was potentially at his worst. It was potentially like the worst version of him at the worst time. And I just don't think Bo's like appreciating that, But having said all of that, it could still be the case that Feige's vision and his way of doing things is just not resonating anymore, and you need a new vision. Now, I think if he were to stay involved, but let somebody else take the reins, like let somebody have a vision for this thing, and then Feige can help them figuring out how to bring the vision to life. Ultimately, as the producer, that's what he did, right? He like pulled all the pieces together, figured it out. So yeah, maybe that's the future, is like a new vision for this thing, or maybe he just leans more on the vision of some people in Parliament or whatever. But yeah, it's a tough time, Rob, and these leaks are tough because it just feels like ultimately it just says, yeah, it is as bad as you thought, and it is a little desperate, and we just got to see. Maybe they'll pull it off, but that's why it stings a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, here's my question for you, right? Yeah. And here's my question for your chat, because a couple people have kind of mentioned this, right? Like, let the Russo brothers take over and just become the head of creative, right? Chief creative officers, and Kevin Feige just oversees them.
Sure.
Would you guys do that? Like, I mean, would you guys want to see the Russos just have total creative control over the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? And they decide what movies get made, they decide, how the movies get made and so on, and that Kevin Feige is the one that just, the buck stops here, so either he approves or disapproves? Because I do agree with your statement that I think Feige was stretched too thin. I think that Feige had, he wanted to be involved in everything, but couldn't be. And so some decisions were just kind of rubber stamped, whereas others got some measure of control, or some measure of like discernment on what happens with those projects. The movies certainly got a lot more attention than like the TV shows.
Sure.
But I mean, what would you do, right? I mean, if not the Russos, then who would you put in charge of creative control for Marvel Studios? And when I say Marvel Studios, I'm talking all of Marvel Studios, right? So we're talking movies, TV shows, the whole nine yards.
So what I would say is you need to identify a creative, either singular creative or a team. And you would need to look at somebody that was like incredibly successful. So like, for instance, the Duffer Brothers come to mind, right? The guys that made Stranger Things. And I think they're wrapping all that shit. They might already have their next thing planned out or whatever. But make no mistake, like that's a cultural phenomenon. Those guys were incredibly successful, probably will, have generational wealth just based off of like their work on that, right? But that's what I mean is like those guys are the guys. I would say somebody like Denis Villeneuve. Now, he's already doing James Bond. You know what I mean? He's got his James Bond thing going on. But, like, that's what I mean. It's like, what I would do if I was Kevin is I would sort of put word out to the agencies and the managers. And I'd be like, we're looking for potentially a pitch that isn't just a movie at Marvel, but is like the whole new Marvel universe. And then I would just see. So like, for instance, I think Peter Jackson could do this. I think Del Toro could do this. I think anybody with a strong sense of vision that has been in the industry for a while, they have to love Marvel. Like that's the thing, right? Like they have to, number one, they have to fucking love Marvel. And probably they have to have loved the MCU, or at least what it was. Right. And yeah, Lord and Miller. That's another great example. Like some creative powerhouse that has just been able to really like make a mark. And yeah, those are just a couple of ideas I have. I don't think the Russo brothers work only because they're still going to feel like the old guard. You know what I mean? Even if they have new ideas, it's just going to feel like the old guard. I feel like you need new, like fresh,
I guess, but Star Wars fans are clamoring for the return of George Lucas. So, as long as the old guard has good ideas and fresh ideas, I think it works.
Yeah,
but, I got to bounce off here in a second. My neighbor next door is 8 months pregnant, and she's screaming at me because she wants to go get food with myself, her, and her.
Hey, do your thing. Do your thing.
Her baby daddy. But I will, before I bounce off here, I will say this. If I were going to choose a team of like 3 or 4 people to be the new Marvel Creative Committee, so they're the ones that are in charge of creative at Marvel, and they answer directly to Kevin Feige and no one else but Kevin Feige.
Yeah.
Jonathan Hickman.
Oh yeah.
Jonathan Hickman, the Russo brothers, and then probably Jon Favreau if I could get him back.
Yeah.
And if not Jon Favreau, try to bring Dave Filoni over from Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's what I would try to do, because I feel like if you had those 4, the Marvel Cinematic Universe would be firing on all cylinders. Now, maybe that's just it's the fanboy in me talking. And that's assuming they even want to do it at all. Like, I would totally get it if Jonathan Hickman's like, you know what? I'm good just writing comics and collecting my check from Marvel. And that's it. I do not want to be in charge of creative control. Or maybe Jonathan Hickman's method of storytelling doesn't scale to movies, which is entirely possible as well.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, like that's what I would do. Like I would grab the Russos, I would grab Jonathan Hickman, and I would grab Jon Favreau, if at all possible, and just be like, you 4 are the ones who are in charge, of Marvel Creative, and you answer to Feige, and that's it. Kirkman, I feel like, is just too damn cynical. Like, he hates Marvel. Like, as I understand it, like, he despises Marvel. I don't know how true that is, but, he despises
Maybe not
Marvel.
so much anymore, but when he was younger, for sure, bro. Yeah.
And then, of course, honorable, the Marvel Creative Committee being what it is, of course, they would reach out to you, and they would reach out to me, and they would reach out to, like, Victor Dandridge. They would take our input, on they would 100%
Well, they're
reach
going
out
to take
us,
it one way or the other, Rob. They're either going to take it the nice way, or they're going to take it on these fucking videos, because we're going to let them know.
Oh, man, yeah, 100%. But I feel like having that kind of creative team, they would be a powerhouse. And you know what? Just for good measure, just to make sure that we have, it's not a sausage fest out there. I would probably bring in either Becky Cloonan or Kelly Sue DeConson. Kelly Sue DeConnick.
I
or
agree.
both. Because Kelly Sue DeConnick, let me tell you something, man. She's a wizard at storytelling.
Yeah,
right? And so is Becky Cloonan. She's, especially when it comes to writing darker stories. Her Punisher was fantastic. But yeah, I would bring them in. That would be. I'd bring back the Marvel Creative Committee.
Hey man, I appreciate you being here. Thank you for your time. It was a good talk. And I know Chad appreciates too. So thanks, man.
Yeah, man. All right, guys. I got to bounce off here. I'm gonna go get some food because I'm hungry as hell too. So.
All right, peace out.
Josh, I'll catch you later, man.
Take care, bro. Peace. Yeah. Hey, that was a good one. That was a good chat. Everybody get some dubs in the chat for Rob, man. Appreciate you. Guys, let's go over some of the soupy chats. I know we had a bunch of them come in here. And let's get caught up on these. I got a couple of other things to say, and then we're going to call it there. Yes. Let me turn this down. Get this going on. Bada boom. Bada boom, bada bing. Hell yeah. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it, man. Okay, couple to catch up on here. Flos Angles, appreciate the 10, man. Says, MCU hasn't had a sense of direction and cohesion within the story/timeline since Endgame. They must not have realized how important post-credit scenes were when they tied into the overarching decision or direction. Yeah, it's hard to say, right? Like, we assume maybe they don't realize. Maybe it's just the case that they do realize, but shit just got really, really hard. I mean, Marvel's fall off is crazy. We've speculated about it. We talked about it for years, basically. And everybody kind of agrees it's a confluence of issues. They bit off way more than they could chew. They had production problems from COVID. The stars that were supposed to be the faces end up, being either tragically passing or the fandom turns on them or Sony takes them back or whatever. Right? So there's all sorts of stuff that's going on. But ultimately, I think what you'd have to say ultimately lies at the feet of Marvel Studios and ultimately at Kevin Feige, and his fault is the way they handled that. Turbulence is always a thing. Choppy waters are always a thing. And for years, Marvel had handled all of that very well. In Phase 4 and Phase 5, they just obviously did not handle it well. Little decisions like the idea to pull back on some of the crazy crossover stuff because you couldn't quite get the schedules figured out is a huge L. It allowed it to feel like there was no direction. It also allowed it all to feel really disconnected. Super bad. So yeah, there's a lot to it. Then he followed up with a 20 spot, man, and I thank you so much. That is so generous. Says, nah, it wasn't as much luck as it was tying the stories together well and not releasing as much content in between. Casuals like me didn't need to be well versed in the comics to get what they were doing. What was going on. Disney Plus overload didn't help. Yeah, I would argue it, similar to what I just explained to you though. Yes, it was them tying stuff together, but in a sense they did get lucky where some of the stuff they tied together like just kind of fit better. They came up with an idea later on that pulled it all together, et cetera, et cetera. So there was luck involved for sure. But ultimately, like what you're saying is they executed correctly. What I'm arguing is they're just not executing correctly now. So we're kind of saying the same thing. Luck, good luck, bad luck, that's always going to be there. The difference is, what do you do? How do you respond to the turbulence? And I would argue Marvel is they didn't respond super well. Zinni says, is there a reboot? If there is a reboot, what happens to Spider-Man? He's just getting started with the street level and he's going to stay in the MCU. Yeah, he'll probably stay. And it's probably like exactly things like this. This question you're bringing up is sort of probably case in point as to why it will be a soft reboot, because they're building up all this other stuff. They think it's valuable. It's an ongoing story, right? I'm just telling you, like, look, and this is the thing. I didn't want to keep Rob here forever, but I probably could have gone back and forth with Rob on this for a long time. I would argue that, like, when you look at what Hickman did with the X-Men, it is the perfect solution to what that problem was. And what that problem was like, sure, there were some people still reading X-Men books, but by and large, they had fallen off. And they didn't attain their cultural relevance anymore. They weren't as relevant to the line, like the total Marvel line. They weren't as relevant to the total comic book conversation. And so what they did was pretty fucking drastic. They canceled every single X-Men book. And then they rebooted with House of X, Powers of X, and the Krakoa era. And it worked, bro. Those sales were crazy. And yes, they did taper off. And there were decisions made after that and after the fact that Hickman left that weren't great. But the point is, that problem is basically the problem that Marvel, the movies, the cinematic universe, that's what they're facing. It's like, sure, there are people still watching Marvel movies. They have 3 movies in the top 10 this year. They'll probably stay that way. But not as many people, and it's not as relevant to the culture. So I think when that happens, the only solution is something drastic. Like, I don't think, like, that's what I'm saying. And I could be wrong, and I hope I am wrong. But I just don't know that marginal changes in a slow recalibration is going to solve this problem. Because the problem needs a shock. The audience needs a shock. They need a shock, and then they need a new story, a new narrative. Recontextualize it all as the new thing. And barring that, I just don't know how they get out of this problem. Floss Angeles says, lots of super chats are to show my appreciation. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. My unpopular take, had Marvel not screwed up the Multiverse Saga, the successful DCU crossover film would have been much more feasible than not, in my opinion. Fair. I think that's fair, brother. And then Darth Snape says, love you, Nerd Avengers. Wait, what about me? What about the love for me? Ain't nobody got love for me anymore? Super late, and I don't want to change the Foley of the stream, but dude, tell me you loved Alien Earth. I did love Alien Earth, but here's what I'll say about Alien Earth. Have you guys seen it yet? I did that thing where I was waiting for the wife. She fell asleep so early last night. I was like, you know what? And I'm sorry, babe, if you're watching this, but I was like, I'm watching Alien Earth on my own. And so I went downstairs and watched Alien Earth with the dogs. Dude, it's cool, but here's what I'll say about Alien Earth. It surprised me because it's not as cerebral as I thought it would be. I don't like it off the rip as much as I like Legion. But one thing that it surprised me in was like, dude, if you just love the Xenomorph, oh my fucking God, dude. There is so much incredible Xenomorph action and gore and fun. Like, bro, if you're just an Alien fan, like it almost feels like Noah Hawley was like, you know, I love doing all this cerebral crazy shit and I will do it. But at the same time, these Alien fans are here because they want to see this alien fuck people up. And dude, he delivers that shit in spades. It is so good. The model looks incredible. The effects look incredible. The action is crazy. Oh, so I'm really liking it, but it did surprise me a little bit, is what I'll say. Can I be knighted, Josh? All right, Shreddy, fine. Fine, Shreddy. You're a goddamn Nerd Avenger now. How did you become a Nerd Avenger again, by the way? Did you actually have to pay for it this time? You know what? I'm proud of you, bud. I'm giving you some shit right now, but ultimately I'm proud of you. You know, Shreddy got a free gifted membership for basically as much as he possibly could. Google basically said, you're never going to get another free month, you motherfucker. And they shut him down. Yeah. I'm hyped for Alien Earth. Alien Earth is cool. Can I get knighted? You're not even a member. Hell no, you can't. Milestone message from a gift. Jesus Christ. It's like Alien with Terminator Cyberpunk anime vibes, kind of. I love it. Yeah, it's cool. I like the show a lot. He's doing some cool stuff with the characters, too. It looks incredible. The characters are fun. I'm down. Yeah, dude, the Xenomorphs. Oh, my God, so good. Josh, why don't you ever change the description of your live streams, LOL? I don't know, brother. Because when I go to click it, it's already auto-filled out from last time, and I'm like, fuck it. I've never gotten a free month. Seems kind of unfair. It does seem kind of unfair. Maybe Shreddy should give you some money. I think that's what we're saying. Any Unity updates? No immediate updates. I do have some movement, but nothing that I'm ready to talk about yet. Hopefully soon, though. They need a new parliament or team under Feige. The comic creators are students of the stories to understand Marvel better and deliver awesome stories to each film. I mean, I think a lot of people are feeling this way. By the way, how are you guys feeling about all this, you know? I mean, we had a long conversation with Rob, like a really long conversation with Rob. At the same time, I thought it was good. I thought it was cathartic. Unfortunately, like, Rob thinks these leaks are pretty ass. You know, I actually still see a scenario in which this movie's still really cool and there's still surprises and there's still really fun stuff. I am a little let down that it's not what I thought it was going to be. It does look a little bit like Desperation. But yeah, I don't know. Just wondering, what do you guys think, man? Do you guys feel better? Do you feel worse? Let's look at the polls here. So 60% of people say they love them. 20% of people say they like them. 45% of people say meh. And then 18% hate them. That's terrible, bro. I'm sorry. Like, if I were Marvel, that's bad. That's bad. We can't have no explanation of Doom looking like Tony. Yeah, so technically I should say, curly-haired slacker, you are a Nerd Avenger now. What I should say is, the way the source described it to me is they said, it's nothing crazy like that. It's just because they wanted our DJ. However, the source also admits that he will use the face to gain the trust of the Avengers. So I think the source might be, either missing something or maybe just not telling me the full truth. It is possible that that face is there simply so that he can gain the trust of the 616 Avengers. And you know what? Maybe that works. Maybe that's enough. I don't know. I almost can't imagine them just never addressing it. You know? Like, I and by the way, there's a lot of evidence from other leaks and rumors that they will address it, but it's like the question is, were those fake leaks? Like, what's going on? What's going on here? I don't know. I don't know, chat. All right. Anyways, guys, I got to get on out of here. I really appreciate y'all. Thank you all for being here. We'll be back at it tomorrow. Obviously, I got the big leak video out earlier today. It'll be making the rounds throughout the day and whatnot. We will get into more news and more stuff tomorrow. I'll post a little bit of the convo from Rob on the Clips channel, and then I do have a clip about the evil OG Avengers stuff and the surmising of the leaks too, which I cut out. So we have a couple clips that'll drop later today. I am going to be working on some other videos and stuff like that because there's still stuff I'm interested in and fascinated by with regards to all of this. So yeah, we'll just kind of keep doing our thing, guys. You know, and you know, DC's doing its thing, Marvel's doing its thing. I stand here before you, or I guess sit here before you, still disappointed, and yet still hopeful. Like, legitimately, still hopeful. Hopeful that it's at least a good-ass time we get. Like, at the end of the day, dude, give me a traditional Doom, have him fuck some shit up, have him be powerful as fuck, and then have some rowdy shit going on in Secret Wars. Maybe I'll forgive you. We could just call Phase 4, 5, 6 a wrap. X-Men Saga could be off to the races, or maybe we hard reboot or do something crazy. I don't know. So either way, guys, look, I'm going to fucking be here. What the fuck else am I going to do? You know? What the fuck else am I going to do? I'm going to be here bitching about it. It'll be 5 years from now, and I'll be like, I still can't believe that the 53rd Marvel movie doesn't hit like the first couple. You know what I mean? So look forward to that. 5 years from now, we're still going to be here doing the same goddamn shit we've been doing it. I appreciate you. Thank you. I look forward to it. As I always say, I hope you, that's right, you are having an awesome and a nerdy day. And I'll see you in the next video. Is everybody gone? Did everybody leave? Leave. leave. Oh man, that's crazy, man. It's been a blur since I heard about these leaks yesterday. I didn't even know what today would bring or how it would go or what would happen. And I think we got through it, and we got through it together. I tell you what, I'll see you in the next one. You do me a favor though, you open up that third eye. And you wash out that stinky butthole, I tell you.